First question.
The way the podcast starts, last guest writes the first question. It's a mystery to both of us.
Oh, okay. Check. So they don't even know who's going to be in this spot.
All they tell them is obviously it's potentially going to either be a fellow veteran or a fellow first responder.
Oh, this is a great question. Regarding the position you are in today, did it play out the way you planned years ago? Oh man, that's a heavy, long story. But quickly, I'll give you the wave tops. So I'm a Christian. I'm a big believer. We'll probably talk about that. But several years ago, in my current company, I was waiting for us to demonstrate our technology to, the world of science, the world of engineers, the world of investors. 3.5 years ago, we probably could have done what we were going to do. We just did this recently, and I can't get into too much detail due to confidentiality purposes. But at a high level, 3.5 years ago, if I would have had a demonstration day on our technology and what we're working on, I would have been an executive in the company. I would have been a minor stakeholder. I wouldn't have been a key stakeholder. I would not have been able to shift the direction of the company, the focus, the mission, the values, the core values. I wouldn't have been able to do any of that 3.5 years ago. And so for the last 3.5 years, I've been weeding through, legal roadblocks, tech roadblocks, engineering roadblocks, you name it. It's a long story. Unfortunately, I can't get into it too much of it here today. But the point of it is 3.5 years ago, I would have been an exec. I would have been a key exec. But I wouldn't be where I am today. Today, I'm proud to say I'm the co-founder of the company. I'm the CEO of the company, and I'm a majority stakeholder. So that question is killer. That's a great question. Way to go. Way to go to previous guest.
And I've heard you talk about this before, and I know you can talk a lot about what you're doing, but is this in the space of the renewable energy?
It is, yeah. Yeah, we're really thrilled. We're working on. We think it's going to help a lot of people for a long time. So I'll come back. I'll come back in the pod, and you and I will talk about it. It'll be so much fun.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things that in a little bit of. So I kind of try to walk a balance between getting a little bit of background on the guests, but not too much, because I like to almost be surprised myself. Yeah. But you've definitely got an interesting story in that you've gone multiple different directions in multiple different facets.
My brother-in-law loves to. Have you ever seen Seinfeld? My brother-in-law, he's like, dude, you're Cosmo
I'm sure I'm
Kramer.
older than you. I'm sure I've seen Seinfeld.
He's like, you're Cosmo Kramer. He's like, you're Cosmo. How did you fall into that?
Do you come sliding in the door every time?
It's funny because, I joined the Navy on the morning of my 18th birthday, right? And my parents wouldn't sign the dotted line when I was 17. You know the deal. You got to have parental consent. They wouldn't do it. I was like, I'm done. I got to get out of here. I want to go join the military. And I joined the military on the morning of my 18th birthday. And I was like, essentially, sayonara, I'm off. I'm off to the races. And so to that end, to that point, right? Like it's been a wild 25 years now since that day, if you will.
Are you one of the people?
26 years.
Are you one of the people who turned 18 before you graduated high school? Or were you?
Yeah. So I quit school. It's February of my senior year of high school. I quit school that morning, went, signed the dotted line, didn't have a high school diploma. Went to boot camp, and in boot camp, I got my GED. Yeah. So like, if you were to look at my qualifications, I am completely unqualified in the historical sense, right? But then if you look at the trend line of life experiences, then then it becomes very different. And over the years, and sorry if I'm fast forward, you keep me honest, but over the years, I was an entrepreneur from a very early age, like 10 years old. I started my first business, right? Car washing and rake leaving, snow shoveling. Like I was doing that. And then eventually I was 12 or 13 and I started a little computer repair shop. I was into tech at an early age, very early age. Like I was rebuilding my computer, my aunt's, my uncle's computers, my grandparents' computers. Then I started doing it around the neighborhood. Like I was always into tech at an early age from a family who was not into technology. And so,
where'd you get that knowledge from?
The library. I would literally go to the library and check out books. And it was always fascinating to me. I loved how technology could be used to improve our life, our lifestyles, our work, our efforts, blah, blah, blah. And so, but I didn't have any qualifications, right? So I come into the military and I had been an entrepreneur, not an extremely successful one, but you get I had ran payroll, for example.
Spirit that you have.
Yeah. I had run billables, right? And so even as a young kid, you experience that. And so then I come into the Navy and I start getting around our community within SOCOM. And my hair, I lost it all. You and I both, right? But my hair started getting blown back where you're like, whoa, there are incredible leaders in this community. This is insane. Like, wow, no wonder they're so successful. This is nuts. And so that's over the 20, 26 years, I started going and started noticing more. And it became an incremental growth and knowledge base where you're just going, wow, like that's incredible. That's incredible as you're watching all of these guys and girls lead at an elite level. And so I started really paying attention to that over the years. And you sit back and it's hard not to sit back and go, wow, I was blessed. I was fortunate to be around just incredible humans. Yeah, of course, we've got some bad actors, some that have maybe need to move on. And I'm not here to judge. My point is, for the majority, wow. I mean, that you were in that space. When you're around elite humans that are also leading at that are leading another group of elite humans, it's different. It's different, right? When you're an elite human and you're leading 20, 30, 60, 100, 10,000 elite individuals, it's a different ballgame. It's a different ballgame. So you start to pick up nuances over the years. And I think that really is, I'm forever grateful to the United States military because that really helped me and improved my leadership capabilities, my understanding, and then also how I can better myself. So I'm really grateful, really grateful.
And not to take it in a huge pivot because I want to get to transition as we move on, but that is one of the, I'll call it the detriments of these careers, is everybody who's there for the most part wants to be there.
Right.
And then you take it to the next.
Dude, and that's we just kind of ignore that. That you can't ignore that. That's huge.
Exactly.
Like it's volunteer. Like everyone wants to be here.
And then you take those teams where people who volunteered first to walk in the door and then volunteered to say, hey, I'm going to put myself through and go to this next level. But even if you bring it back down to the basics, everybody wants to be there. And we overlook the fact that when you say there's some bad apples, yeah, but we've already got people who want to come in the door.
Right.
Then you move into the civilian world and you've got people who are at companies that don't even want to be there.
Right.
And that's that big transition piece of learning to be able to, you've spent 20, 30 years in this career, 5 years, whatever it is, it will change you. And then you move on to the civilian side and it's like, you got to learn to kind of, not everybody's the same.
Yeah. It's a challenge, right? Like when you're an individual that doesn't want to be there, there's a lot going on upstairs, right? Why are you so frustrated? And more importantly, why are you staying there? I get we got to put food on the table. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you have other options. If, for example, say you're a director level or you're a VP level, you've got options. you don't have to stay at that company, right? If you're a manager or, you don't have to necessarily stay there. Now, if you're an individual contributor that is a specialist, same thing applies. Even though you're not leading, you have opportunities. You just got to go find them. And so that's why I'm really excited about being on this show, because I'll tell you what, I think back to, how we kind of opened this conversation. I think that the group that we're talking to, the listeners that we're talking to, hopefully encouraging, wow, the world's their oyster. I mean, I've been out for a while, right? And I was a executive of a publicly traded company on NASDAQ. And I was at one point, my team was combing through like 2,000 resumes as we were scaling that company. We'll get into it later. But my point is, whenever we saw or flagged someone had LE or military experience, it was immediately flagged and it would hit my desk, because I wanted to understand, because civilian sector does a horrific job of understanding this audience's capabilities. And conversely, we do a horrific job of selling those capabilities, right? Because we are the humble warriors, and I get it. But we do a horrific job of selling those capabilities. And this community has so much to offer the world. Because why? They've been around those elite other individuals, leading elite individuals. It's really remarkable. So yeah, I'm so proud of you and what you're doing here. This is amazing.
To get a little bit more background on you, because you already mentioned being entrepreneurial from a young age and dropping out of high school, and those kind of maybe conflict with each other. Where's hometown? Where'd you grow up? And does that entrepreneurial spirit come from mom and dad? Were they entrepreneurial?
No, it skipped a generation. My grandparents were. My grandparents on both sides of the family were very entrepreneurial. My grandfather on my mom's side was a landowner in Southern Illinois. Immediately right after World War II, which he served in, both of my grandpas did actually serve in World War II. My grandfather on my mother's side moved to Southern Illinois after the war, started acquiring land. I mean, eventually he owned like 10,000, 15,000 acres. And then eventually, by the time I was around, like, he started selling it off, right? But he was, a farmer and a landowner and, an entrepreneur in the local environment, in the local community. My grandparents, my dad's parents, who I grew up around in New York, started right after World War II. My grandfather was actually on the USS Indianapolis when it was shot by a Japanese torpedo. It sunk 5 days before World War II ended. Actually, I think it was 4 days, 3 or 4 days before the war ended, because they were in the water for 5 nights, 5 days. Wow. But when they got rescued, the war was over, and they're like coming out of the water, like, what, we won? But after he survived that horrific, I mean, that's still to this day the U.S. Navy's biggest loss of life to this day. And I'm so glad, obviously I wouldn't be here if he didn't survive. But after that, he and my grandmother, they got married, and they started an upholstery shop in Rye, New York, just out, Westchester area. And they grew that. And then, dude, they were so frugal with their money. They were so meticulous with their accounting and everything that they were able to retire my grandpa was 58. Think about this.
For the time.
Think about this, right? He's 58 years old. And by the way, he lived till he was 94. So you do the math. I mean, 40 years almost. He's living off of savings that they had pennies that they had put away, real estate here or there. So they weren't wealthy, right? But they had done it frugally enough where they could actually live off of it, go take a nice trip every year. They'd go to, the Europe or wherever, take a cruise, wherever, for almost 40 years. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. They also timed the real estate markets well. But my point is, they were the entrepreneurs. My parents weren't. My parents were more academia. And so I was growing up in an environment where my parents were high school, getting good grades in high school was paramount. Going to college was the goal. If you want to join the Navy or the military, go to one of the academies. And so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get after it as soon as possible. And so eventually I was like, hey, I'm going to go do this. And I joined, and my mom was furious. Oh, she was so mad. I love her to death. She's actually at the house right now watching the kids for me, but and we have a great relationship, but she was so mad that she kicked me out of the house for like 3 days. And I was living in my, old beat up car in the trunk of my car for a couple of days. But
was it more the fact that you dropped out of high school or the fact that you joined the Navy?
Oh yeah, both. Well, both. And that they didn't approve any of it. I didn't talk to them about it. I went behind their back. They were trying to create an environment of trust and transparency, and I wanted to do it my way. So, but it worked out for me in the end. We've obviously reconciled that, and we're good to go. But yeah, and then I joined the Navy. I have a Navy SEAL contract. I go to Buds. I get in trouble for underage drinking. So stupid. I get in trouble for underage drinking, which forces me, and I wasn't, drunk. I just had alcohol.
What phase were you in?
I was pre-phase. So I get kicked out immediately. This is pre 9/11, right? And so they're not essentially hurting for bodies like we were post,
What year
engagements.
was this?
This was in 99.
Okay.
And so, so I get kicked out. I get sent to a ship. I do a couple deployments on a ship. I'm personally, I loved it because I got to see the world. I got to, while I was actually going on these deployments, during, the nights or the weekends, I'm just pounding books. I just literally put myself through college. So I started reading, any business book, any finance book I could get a hands on. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the best of this. I'm just going to go back to my roots of what I know, what I love, and I'm just going to understand what I can about business. So I put myself through like an undergrad, essentially, in business. I just started reading, just nonstop, pouring books. It started with, have you ever heard of the Atlas Shrugged?
Yes.
Ayn Rand started there. Then,
just a small book.
Yeah. And then that started spawning ideas around objectivism, all these ideas around running a business in a good way. And then just took off from there. And I just kept pounding books. You have a lot of books in here, so you get it. You have a lot of great books in here, by the way.
Taking you a couple steps backwards.
Yeah, please.
Deciding to be a Navy SEAL, where does that come from? Do you have military in your family?
Yeah, so my two
Obviously.
grandfathers, and then, but they didn't really talk about it, right? Growing up, I didn't have anyone to really talk about. I grew up right across the river from West Point in New York. I was actually thinking about joining the Army because I loved Chuck Norris. Oh man, I love some Chuck Norris movies back in the 80s,
Who
90s. I loved them. And so I'm really excited about doing that. And I wanted to go be a Green Beret. And then one day my dad comes home, and I'm in my senior year of high school. And he has a Dick Marcinko book, Rogue Warrior. And he's like, hey, you ever hear about these guys? And I'm like, I have no idea what this is. He goes, it's Navy SEALs. I'm like, what's that? I didn't even know. And so I started reading the book one night, and I stayed up till like 5 o'clock in the morning the very next day, just reading. I was like, dude, I read it cover to cover. I would just page flip. Like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. This is what I want to do. So the very next day, I started my regiment to train for that. And the reason why is I love water. Like, I love oceans, rivers, lakes, streams. I just like being around water. And we'll probably get into how that impacted me years later with One More Wave and surfing and everything. But I love water. And the reason my dad gave me that book, he was like, hey, Green Berets are really a land-based unit. You might want to check out this maritime force. They're very elite. And so I was like, oh, you're right. That's what I want to do. I want to join the maritime force. Well, fast forward, 9/11 happens, and all I see really is the desert. But other than a couple of deployments, I did a couple of deployments before I went back to Buds. That took me all around the Mediterranean, in the Arabian Gulf. We did some compliant boardings in the Arabian Gulf, etc., and even into the Baltics, which is really cool. I got to see the world. I went to like 38 countries over my career. It was really, really a great, wild time and a great time. And then eventually, you know, as I got back into naval special warfare, it was predominantly Iraq and Afghanistan, with about a year of my time in Southeast Asia. And so at the highlight, I'll give you quick highlights and then we can double click wherever you want. In 2006, I'm in the teams post deployment, and I get hand selected with a small group, only like 6, 7 of us. We get selected to do a military startup. And it was really cool because that entrepreneurial spirit came back. So I was super excited, actually. I was like, this is great. We get to start from scratch. We can start building protocols and processes around this and how the organization works and how it supports other elements or other teams abroad. This is fantastic. And I was like back in my, you know, early 90s kind of entrepreneurial zone. And so the military has a lot of that. And we don't talk about it that much, right? There's innovation happening all the time. There's growth happening all the time. There's budgets, budget constraints, budget execution, innovation through technology, tech adoptions that we don't really talk about that much because, you know, it's not as sexy as like the TV shows of like a guy running down a hallway and blowing something up. And I get it.
But you're hitting on something that's really important, is that
extremely important.
You took the opportunity to go to the highest level in the military, but at the same token, you had the mindset of, I want to be a business owner. Let's look at this, or how can I work it from a business standpoint to grow it?
Right.
As opposed to just jumping on the train and letting the train control where you were going.
Right. And we, to be clear, I'm not the only one, right? Like I say all this, but like I couldn't have done any of this without all the amazing people like yourself around me, right? Like it doesn't happen. But my point is that there's an incredible amount of this intrapreneurial spirit, if you will, within this community. And we're seeing it now. It's actually really interesting. We're seeing it now in the younger kids that are coming into the pipeline, that are coming into the program, that really love, I mean, truly love innovation. Problems that we were looking at 20 years ago, these kids are solving in months. It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating to see how we've, you know, totally evolved over the years. Now we have different challenges, but it's really cool to see what's happening these days. So yeah,
I'm gonna pause you on. So you make it into, or you get your SEAL contract. You go into boot camp. Any issues with that? Were you a squared away kid as far as abide by the rules, that type stuff?
Yeah.
And what about your physical fitness?
Fitness was fine. I wasn't great here's what happened to me in boot camp. Because I was a high school dropout, I went into a special division. This special division needed to smarten everyone up, right? To pass a GED. So like that was priority. Like, let's get these kids to be sailors. So I was kind of in the crew, if you will, right? And let's get these guys to be good sailors for the Navy. What it did not allow me to do was maintain my physical capability. So my physical capability during Navy boot camp started to decline. Actually, I gained like 20 pounds. I come home because how it ended up is my boot camp ended into like Christmas. And so at the Christmas period, I went home because it was like, all right, my apprenticeship school isn't going to start till the first week of January. So I'm just going to go home. If it wasn't because of that, I would not have gone home. Right. So I go home and I'm celebrating Christmas with fans and family, and I'm right at a boot, and everyone's like, dude, what the heck happened to you? You gained like 20 pounds. And I'm like, I know. So I spent all of Christmas trying to get back into shape. And my pull-ups had significantly declined because I didn't have the capability to really do them during boot camp. There wasn't like some guys and gals had in their bathrooms like poles that you could hang from. My bathroom didn't have that. So like, how do you do pull-ups? You know, and even if I went into like the bathroom late at night and started doing push-ups, like someone would come find me and yell at me and tell me to go back to my bed. So like, I tried and I did my best. So anyway, some other than my pull-ups declining, the rest of my body was pretty good. Like I was never a fast runner, dude. I remember guys being in some of my platoons. There was guys in my boot camp, my buds class or my platoons that were running like in boots, like 4-minute miles in the sand. Like that's cooking. I was never one of those guys. I was never
That's beyond cooking.
That's cooking. That is cooking in boots in the sand. My buddy Brad in my buds class, I remember there was one day where like the water was lapping up to like the sand dunes, the sand berms, right? And the water's kind of like ebbing and flowing because it's a high tide. And so when we're running a 4-mile timed run. And when the water would come up, obviously, it just slows your run down dramatically. Well, it was a time run, 4 miles. I think you had to come in, and at the time, I think it was 28 minutes or something like that. And Brad is like the only one. Brad's like the rest of us all like fail, but like Brad doesn't just pass. He gets like a 25 minutes. I'm like, dude, what the flip? And, but my point is there was guys like that, like just gazelles that could just go. I was a good swimmer. I was always a good swimmer. I'm pretty fast in the water, but in terms of running, I wasn't great. So I had to deal. I was always bottom 10% in the run, for sure. It's funny though, like, you know, you have the full spectrum, right? In the special forces community. I mean, I bet if I lined up 100 of my buddies, 25% of them would be in the top 25% running, 25% of them bottom, 25% would be top swimmers, 25 would be bottom, 25% would be top, you know, power lifters, 25 bottom. I mean, it's all facets, right? Like all strengths and weaknesses, but that's the whole point of the teams, right? Is we all lean on each other's strengths. It's really remarkable. So I was definitely not one of those Adonises. I remember, this is so funny. Like I remember it's like, we're not in Hell Week yet. We're a couple weeks in, but definitely people are starting to quit. And I remember one of my best friends at the time, we're still friends. Good dude. I love him. He looked like Chris Hemsworth playing Thor, like just a beast, right? And you're like, dude, I'm sticking next to you, buddy. We're going to make it. We're going to crush it, right? And I'll never forget him running up to me one night, and he had this look in his face, and he's like, dude, I can't do it. Can't do it. And I was like, holy moly. And I wasn't even thinking about quitting at the time, but I remember him quitting, and I remember how much that impacted me going, like that just doesn't matter. That physical appearance just doesn't matter, right? What matters is up here, I'm not lying to myself. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it through this, and I've got this. And I'm hurting, my body's hurting, but I'm going to make it through. So it was really fascinating. I'll never forget that day when he was like looking at me with wild, bewilderment. Like, I can't do it, man. I can't do it. I'm out. And he just ran off, never to be seen from again, you know? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so one of the obvious component of this is the transition out, but I do have guests who are listeners who are listening that are thinking about going in, and you hit on something, that mental fortitude, which seems to be that's the baseline, especially when you get to the special operations community.
Sure.
Where does that come from for you? Do you know?
I get asked this question a lot. I think the mental fortitude is really, I think the root of it, this is my opinion, I think the root of it is really baked in the fact that either you aren't lying to yourself or you are, right? Like if you're not lying to yourself or even questioning something, you're going to get it done. Like you're going to get it done. If you're lying to yourself or questioning, hey, can I do this? Or I don't know if I'm going to do everything it takes to do this, it's not going to get done. Same with business, right? If you don't set a mission, values, and goals, you're not going to get them done. And so what I believe what we really see in the community, in the soft community through, these programs, these attrition programs, is you have guys and gals that are lying to themselves before they show up. They're like, hey, I'm going to give it everything I got. Well, dude, you were lying to yourself, man. Now, they're rare cases. It's not that common. Usually we weed them out. All programs do, where you're not physically capable. Your body's not going to be able to do it. But usually they don't get to the door, right? Because we weed that out if their body, and for them, for that, I can't take credit. I was gifted, you were gifted with a body that could do it. 99% of people are gifted with a body that could do it if they trained and they put forth, dietitian, nutritional input, physical output, they could do it. But the ones that are lying to themselves, which is obviously, in my opinion, the majority of those who drop on request, DOR as we call it, the self-deselect. Our programs don't force people out, right? Like, that's pretty wild. Our programs don't force people out. It's volunteer program. So, I mean, every single person that leaves on their own accord. Well, then what just happened? Oh, they came to the realization that they did not want to do it. So then let's back that up. What happened? Well, you said you wanted to do it. Now you're saying you don't want to do it. What happened? I often think that it's like, okay, you were lying to yourself over here, right? That's me. That's an age-old debate, but that's what I think.
I've been fortunate to have multiple guests now who have gone through the pipeline, and several of them have been rolled for medical reasons.
Oh, sure.
And I would imagine that,
dude, every team guy that I know had a medical issue in basic. I mean, that's not true. I have one friend. He's like, no, I never got injured. I have one friend. I have one. I've probably met, I don't know,
Part robot.
2,000 Navy SEALs, 2,500 Navy SEALs in my life. I know one who is like, yeah, I didn't have any issues.
And he's lying.
Yeah.
I would imagine, though, and you bring up a great point, that thing of you can lie to yourself and say, I'm dialed in, I'm squared away, I'm good to go with this. Training staff can see what's really underneath the surface. Oh. And for the people who have been rolled because of medical, I would imagine for a large majority of them, staff saw that they were putting out 100%. And like you said, you can't control it if your body gives out on you. So we're going to give you another try. Right. As opposed to somebody who's like, oh, well, I got injured. And they're using that as an excuse. That excuse might as well have a bright light shining on it. Yeah. I really feel like we do a phenomenal job of going, nope, your body broke. And we do not want to break the body further. Let's let you heal so you can reattempt, right? I think we do a phenomenal job at that. And we're increasingly getting better at understanding human performance and what the body can take. I mean, it's only getting better. And so we give the students multiple opportunities to deal and improve their human performance, but improve their medical condition. We really do. I mean, we do phenomenal. I was just talking to a kid that I'm mentoring right now. He's in the program. He's in the program, and he called me up, I don't know, like 3-4 weeks ago. He's like, man, the instructors are telling me I should go on medical and D-class and go and class up with the next class. He goes, but we're only 7 weeks out from Hell Week. I'm like, 7 weeks? I was like, dude, are you crazy? I was like, you know how hard the next 7 weeks are if you're broke? I was like, what do you? He goes, well, then I got to start all over again. I was like, who gives a flip? Because if you break yourself even further, if you tear that ACL further, it's gonna be lights out. You could be not just career ending, you could deal with a life altering
disability. So don't do that. I'm like, just suck it up. I know it sucks. You're going to have to start over, blah, blah, blah. And so he did. And I'm really proud of him. But my point is, we give that opportunity. The instructors were there mentoring and encouraging, like, hey, dude, we know you want to be here. No one's denying it. Your body just needs a reset. Let's get you the medical attention you need, and we're going to get you back on the horse. And so we've done a good job of getting better at that. Because there's nothing like losing, because, dude, accidents happen. You know the deal. Accidents happen, right? And so there's nothing like losing a great candidate for a phenomenal program due to a mishap or an accident or something that, you could rehab through. Yeah. So those young bodies, they can rehab. You and I break something, dude. Our rehab's a lot longer than these 20-year-olds.
Staying in that vein of mental strength and resilience. So you get kicked out before you even get to start the program.
Yep.
How do you fight back and rebound from that? And who was a pivotal person who kind of grounded you, or,
Captain Rob Swallow, I'll never forget. I'm forever grateful for him. I was on the USS Nicholas. I was trying to get back to Buds, or I was going to all right, I guess I'm going to get out. If I can't go back, like, that's why I joined the Navy. Like, nothing against the team on the Nicholas, nothing against surface warfare, but I joined to be a Navy SEAL. And so I was almost at my wit's end towards the end of my tour there, until we had a command turnover. And he came in. I was doing message traffic for the boat at the time. And one day I went into his office to get his sign off on the daily op rep and the operational report. And I forget, I can use acronyms here. I forget, a lot of times I go on civilian, podcasts, and I forget here I can use all my acronyms. So I'm doing Op Rep 5, and I go in to his office, and we're BSing for, 2 or 3 minutes. And he's like, hey, what are you going to do next? And I was like, well, and I told him my whole story, and he goes, wait, are you physically fit enough to get into the program right now? I go, oh yeah, I could pass it. I've been training. I could pass it right now. The problem is the Master Chief here won't let me go. And he goes, he doesn't even bat an eye. Within 2 seconds, he picks up the phone. He's like, hey, CMC, in my office right now. The CMC walks in, and he looks at me, and he knows exactly where this conversation's going, because I've been pestering him for a year to approve me a package to go back. And he just, for some reason, this guy had it out for me. I don't know why, still to this day. Please call, if you're listening, please call me. I'd love to talk to you. But he had it out for me. And Rob Swallow, he was like, hey, CMC, what's the deal? He goes, well, he broke his wrist, last deployment. And I'm like, and that's why you're not going to let me go to the program? Like, what are we even talking about? And so the captain of the boat just looks at me, and he goes, can you pass the test? I was like, absolutely. We're on deployment in the Med. Within 18 hours, no joke, he has a helicopter take me to Naples, Italy. I go, I do my whole med board. I do my full physical screening. Within a week, I have orders back to Buds. And it was all because he saw something in me and empowered and encouraged it. And I'm forever grateful to that man for that. It was really cool of him. And sure enough, within, he even told me, he was like, hey, he looks at me, he goes, thanks for all you've done for our Navy. He goes, you've been a great sailor. You haven't been a turd. You've been working hard. And he goes, go crush it. And he goes, and hey, take all your stuff. Don't leave anything on the boat. So when I went and did my meds board, my med screening and my physical and everything, I had all my stuff, like my sea bag and everything. And I'm glad I did, because, dude, a week later, I flew from Naples to Coronado. It's pretty cool.
I like hearing those stories, because for me, one of the best experiences I had near the end of my career was moving into a position of leadership.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe that the key thing as a leader that we need to do is make our people better.
Right.
And if there was somebody that's holding you back from trying to do something that you wanted to do, that's not obviously not doing anything better for you, but it's not doing anything better for the Navy.
Right.
Just because of your own personal bias against them.
Right. And I now fast forward years later, right? I eventually become, an SC, a senior enlisted advisor. Eventually I get, a command, or a UIC, as we say in the Navy. And so where I was the senior tactical leader, senior enlisted advisor for that command. And so you're in charge of manning, HR, for those not in the military, but you're essentially owning all of the manning for the command. And, so I get it. When you're dealing with the detailers and you're moving bodies around, and you have, maybe you're short on manpower. Trust me, I get it. I understand. I understand how all of the intricacies that can play at the dependencies of the command and the needs of the force. So it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. But I'll tell you, when you just nailed it. You just nailed it, Paul, because when you can look at an individual and you can really see their strengths and you can go, oh, dude, I need to redetail you over to this department. And you take the time to actually go through the process of actually moving a body, moving a human from a weakness area that they're actually deployed to, or they're actually in that job or that role or that function. And you can then move them over to where their strengths are really going to shine. Like, why wouldn't we do that? And so that's a challenge. It's always a challenge in the military. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. But we're trying to get better. I think our military is getting better. I think pockets of LE are getting really better at it. A quick aside, I was up in Plano, Texas in 2018, I want to say. I went to Toyota, and Toyota, now we haven't talked about this, but I've been a student of organizational culture for 20 years. I love studying culture, organizational culture to be specific. Toyota, which I've looked at and studied over the years, does something very fascinating, and I love talking about it. If you are an individual at Toyota, you can be hired to join their marketing team. Well, if you're a great individual, you got a lot of strengths, they want to retain you, and you start getting bored of marketing, they'll go, hey, Paul, what do you want to do next? And if you go, well, I'd love to check out finance, they don't go, what? They go, oh, really? Well, let's talk to so. So if you go to, so in 2018, I'm visiting with their entire exec team of their plant. And one of their EVPs, executive vice presidents, I sit down with, he had been there for 29 years at Toyota. And he had been in 19 departments because they realized something that I wish more companies realize, which is, hey, if you're a great individual, like the military does this, obviously we move command. LE does it because you move from department to department. Private sector doesn't do a good job of it. Toyota's trying to do a phenomenal job, and I think they really are. They've been doing it for years, whereas that individual was in 19 different departments. He went from marketing to finance to engineering to prototyping, back into sales, to customer success, into business development, and then into a managerial role, and then back into another finance like biz dev role, until he was in his role. And I was like, what? They allow this? And he's like, yeah, we want to retain good people. We want them to be happy and get their best. So if we can get their best from in the marketing department for 4 years, amazing. And then we can get their best in finance for 4 years, amazing. And I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. That's great. That's great.
Well, the ancillary benefit to the company is look at all of the institutional knowledge that he brings with him. Every time he moves to a different unit, wait a minute, I know how the marketing team works and what the marketing team needs out of this team. Yeah. As opposed to, like you said, nope, you're in marketing, stay in marketing. Okay, well, then I'm going to leave the company.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. So it's really, really fascinating. I don't know where we're going from that, but yeah, I love it.
Let's just kind of keep the ball rolling in the vein of where we were going. So when did you get to Buds?
So I get to Buds in 2003. Right. And
so almost 4 years after you enlisted.
Yeah. And I class up and we are a winter class, which means you're going to go through Hell Week in the winter. The water's going to, you know the deal. I mean, we're here right now. The water's cold. And in fact, for my Hell Week, the water got down to 51 degrees in Coronado, which is, you know the deal. It's just coming straight down, essentially coming from Alaska, Seattle down to Coronado. When that water churns on the Pacific, it's completely different from the Atlantic side. Growing up in New York, I mean, that water would get, even in New York, the water in the summer sometimes would get up to 82, 85 degrees. Not in San Diego. I never knew this, especially as an 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid.
Only the sun gets warm in California.
Right. And so that water was cold. That water was cold. But we started out with 135 guys. By the time we went to Hell Week, we were down to like 85. I had, Thor quitting on me. And I started developing an inflammation in my IT band. Which is, essentially that band on the outside of your leg that runs alongside your knee, down to your shin. And it had gotten so bad that I was in so much pain because of the inflammation that I had to start pounding Motrin because I had no other solution. Back to, I'm dealing with inflammation, which isn't an injury.
Your body is built for more energy, more focus, more strength. But if you're feeling sluggish, unmotivated, or mentally drained, it's time to make a change. At Human Performance TRT, science meets convenience. Their hormone replacement therapy, weight loss programs, and mental health solutions are all designed to help you feel and perform at your best without ever leaving home. They offer medical-grade hormone optimization, weight loss support with personalized health coaching, and ketamine therapy for depression, anxiety, and trauma, all guided by qualified mental health professionals. HPTRT is veteran and first responder owned, and they make it simple to optimize your health. There's no locked-in contracts, and if you're already on a hormone program, switching is easy. There's no extra test if your blood work is under 6 months old. Ready to take back your edge? Go to hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off. That's hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off your entire program. Stop waiting. Your peak performance starts now.
And back then, inflammation, what are you going to do?
Can you put out or can you not put out?
Yeah, you're inflamed. And I was in so much pain that I couldn't walk some mornings when I would get out of bed. So I had to start setting my alarm clock for an hour before the rest of the class just to start a stretching routine. So I just started pounding Motrin. I started getting up to 3,000 milligrams of Motrin a day just to reduce the pain. After everyone was done, after rooms clean, everyone, lights out or whatever, I'd go hit ice bath, plunge pool / hot tub to reduce the inflammation and help heal. So finally I get to bed, legs not feeling too bad. Then I wake up and start all over, and the pain is excruciating. So
leading up to starting buds, all your training, had you ever encountered any type of injuries?
No, not like this, right? Not like this. This was new for me. So I'm stretching, I'm trying to do everything I can to manage this pain. And it was so painful. I mean, I'm telling you, I was almost on crutches. I was in so much pain. And this is a couple weeks. This starts festering, I want to say 5 to 6 weeks before Hell Week. And so fast forward, people are dropping. I'm managing it. I'm getting through. I would have a couple of days here and there where I didn't have any pain. It would kind of start to simmer, and then all of a sudden,
get you all excited.
Yeah, then it would come raging back. And so I'm just bearing through it, grimacing through it, and then finally Hell Week's approaching. I get to Hell Week. I'm like, all right, we got this. We're just gonna keep crushing it. Something interesting happened. Well, actually, before I get there, let me back up. So the morning of Hell Week, so check this. The morning of Hell Week, I wake up, my leg's on fire, and I have a whole new problem. I have 102.5 degree temperature.
That'll keep you warm in the water.
And I feel like crap. And I'm just like, I'm trying to do gear prep, getting ready, because we got to get our gear ready and stuff for the evening party to ensue. And I'm just feeling like crap, and I'm trying to sleep, trying to pound water and electrolytes, trying to do whatever I can. And the doc is like, hey, what are you going to do about this? And I'm like, he's like, it's Hell Week. And I'm like, let's go. I'm just like, let's go. I'm now back to what I told my kid earlier. I'm ignoring that advice, but at the same time, I would
start Hell Week.
I have to DOR. At that point, I have to DOR. They're not going to let me med roll because I have a temperature,
right,
and inflammation. Like, dude, suck it up. And honestly, that's what we're going to deal with overseas. That's what we're going to deal with. You're going to be sick sometimes. You're not going to feel good. Now, you're not going to go on a mission, but you get the point. Like, you're going to still be deployed, or you're going to be in a zone, and you're going to not feel good. So you got to figure it out. So anyway, I wake up, I got this new problem, and I'm like, son of a biscuit. So here comes breakout, and it's brutal. We do the infamous Hell Week breakout, and explosions, blah, blah. Fast forward, people start dropping, and all of a sudden, so Hell Week starts on Sunday night. By Tuesday, dude, my inflammation in my knee was gone. And I mean, I didn't have it come back for 15 years. It was wild. I think it was really because of the amount of cold water, the amount of being in that 50 below, Andrew Huberman talks about, anything below 55 degrees. I'm a big plunge pool guy. I love plunging.
Say, you're doing plunge pool before it was cool?
Yeah, I love plunge pool. But that water was 51, and I was in it a lot that week. And I really think that reduced the inflammation. I really do. Now, I've dialed it in, just a quick aside. I've dialed it in over the years. And for me now, my sweet spot is below 42 to 41, 38 to 41. If I go 45 degrees, I notice immediately I don't get the same benefit from my plunge pool as I do as when I'm at 38 to 41. So quick aside. But
another quick aside, it's funny to talk to former SEALs who are divided. Some are like, I spent enough time in cold water, I'm never getting into a plunge pool again.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, I'm a surfer too. So it's funny to get a team guy to go surfing with you if they're not a surfer is pulling teeth, because they're like, dude, I'm not getting wet and sandy. Not on my time off. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. But there's a crew of us that are still into it. But anyway, so fast forward, and this is pretty funny. This was actually my first experience really with real leadership. Everything up to this point, I was kind of an individual contributor in my life, really. Back when I was young, I had one teammate on my, computer repair shop, or, shoveling snow or whatever. But, and even in the, in the Navy leading up to this, I didn't have 20 or 30 people in a division that I was leading. I never really had that. Just how everything worked out, right? And so this is my first time where my leadership get put to the test. And so it's Tuesday night of Hell Week, and now we're down to 20 people. And all of a sudden, we're going through it, and all of a sudden you hear, hey, who's next? Who's in charge? And it's chaos. No one knows who's in charge because people are just dropping. And so the instructor's like, hey, get back in the water. And so we go back in the water. My head's under the water, actually. We're going up, down, doing sit-ups in the water. So your head goes underneath the water, right? Up, down. And all of a sudden I hear who's in charge? Everyone's screaming, oh, who's in charge? What's going on? It's chaos. All of a sudden I hear, Buckett. And I'm like, Buckett. And all of a sudden I'm like, Buckett. I'm like, what the flip? How the freak am I in charge? I'm like, Buckett. And then the instructor, who's Buckett? Get over here. So I run over, and they're like, what's your head count? And I'm like, dude, I have no idea. I literally, my head was under the ocean. And then it came up and saw your face. How would I know? And they're like, well, why don't you fix it? And I go, I need 8 seconds. I look around, and I'm like, we're at 17 now. And he goes, that's right. And I go, okay, what do you want me to do now? Right. And he's like, you're in charge. You're the leading petty officer now. And I'm like, okay. And I look over at my best friend. He's my best friend, Mikey, who's the OIC. And I'm like, Mike, let's line it up. And I don't know what I'm doing, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. Thor's quitting on me. My IT band's now finally getting better. And, people are saying since one thing I didn't mention, but like when I joined the military, when I was 18, like the amount of people that were all of a sudden experts on a job that they had never done, was really interesting to witness and hear as a young kid. Like all of a sudden, all these experts, where were you 2 weeks ago when I was thinking about doing this? Now that I signed the dotted line, everyone's an expert, right? So all these experts are in your head, right? You know the deal. Everyone's telling you this is a job that can't be done, that you're unqualified, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm there. Now I'm in this role. And now I'm a leader in this role. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do at all. So I just defaulted to what I did know, which was just like, smile. I'm just going to start smiling. I'm just going to start cheerleading everybody. I'm just going to start patting everyone on the back. I'm going to try and be funny, try and tell jokes, let people make fun of me, whatever, because I wasn't the fastest. Clearly, I wasn't the fastest. I was far from the fastest. In fact, we've already talked about it. I was one of the slowest guys. Not the best looking, not the smartest, and all the things, right?
You weren't the best looking?
You know what I mean? Like my point is like all the adjectives, whatever, all the descriptions. I didn't check any of them, right? So here I am. I'm in charge. Everyone's looking at me, and I don't know what to do. I'm just going to start cheerleading. I'm just going to do whatever the instructors tell me to do and just encourage everybody. We had 17 guys. And so, dude, I'll never forget it. Fast forward, we're going. Everyone's doing good. We got a tight crew. There's 17 of us. We went from 135 to 85 down to 17. Water's cold. It's dark. You know how San Diego gets in the winter. Like that sun's going down at 4:30 sometimes, 5 p.m., especially when it's cloudy. It gets dark. So now you're dealing with not 12 hours of darkness, but it could be 14 or 15 hours of darkness, right? Which is cold. You know the deal. And so we line up for an infamous 2-mile timed run. It's at the end, towards the end of Hell Week. It's on like Thursday afternoon. So I'm looking around, everyone's there. All 17 of us are still there. We're like kind of joking and token, like, we got this, guys. 24 more hours and we're freaking on our way to becoming Navy SEALs. Let's go, right? And the gun goes off or whatever, bang, go, 2 mile timed run. And dude, I remember looking at the dudes next to me, left of me and right of me. I remember seeing everyone's faces like, we got this, determination, commitment, and something just triggered inside of me. I don't know still what it was till this day. Like maybe endorphins kicked in, whatever, epinephrine in my, whatever. I take off and I just start going, and I'm just like, Paul, let's go. And I'm just,
fire played in your head?
In my head, Chariots of Fire is playing. My dad loved that movie growing up. So it's dun, 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 right? Dun, dun, dun. And I just go, and dude, I'll never forget it. And all the buddies make fun of me, but like I came in first. I'm not the fastest guy. I've never done anything close to that again in my entire military career. I've never been in a social setting where I came near the first on a foot race, and on a 2-mile run. I'll never forget. Like I'm just completely zoning out. Like just done the Chariots of Fire, bro. I remember coming over the finish line and just like kind of like Will Ferrell, like, oh, that's how you debate. Remember old school? That's how you debate. I remember coming out of it like, oh, I blacked out. Like, and I remember looking around and I was like, dude. And I remember one of the instructors like, hey, and he gets on the radio and he calls one of the other, hey, did Buckett check in on like the checkpoints? And they're like, yeah, we got Buckett checked in on all the checkpoints. He's like, huh? Well, he came in first. And the other instructor's like, no shit. And I just start laughing. I'm like, yeah, touche, guys, touche. And my point of why I tell that story is not a brag. It's because of like watching all of the dudes around you still being there because of encouragement, camaraderie, creating an environment, a culture where like everyone's like, dude, let's just pat each other on the back. Let's all commit. Let's all be friends. Let's all encourage each other. Let's not talk crap about each other. Let's just uplift one another. And then all 17, when I took over, it was 17. At the end of Hell Week, 17. And so that really kicked off my experience in leadership. And what I like to say is, you know, how organizational culture can really win the day. And then from there, continued on, went to, you know, a West Coast team. Then I got
to a West Coast team.
Originally, I didn't. Originally, I wanted an East Coast team, and then I met a woman named Candace. I fell in love with her, and she was looking to move to San Diego. And then I was like, well, if you're going to be in San Diego, I want to be near you. We're about to celebrate 20 years of marriage this year. So she's a beast. She's my Spartan queen. So I'm very, very glad that I made that decision. Originally, I wanted to go East Coast, closer to New York. I could bounce up there. I'd already done some time in Virginia, and I was like, I'm going to go back. I want to go to, you know, our elite command in Virginia Beach. I want to do that path. Then I met my wife, and I was like, I'm good. I'll stay in San Diego. And I had started, full disclosure, I'd also started surfing. So it was like the surf and my beautiful wife. I was like, I'm good. I'll stay in San Diego.
Going into the Navy, were you thinking you wanted to make a career out of it?
I was undecided, honestly. I knew I wanted to serve the military in a maritime elite capacity. I wasn't sure what that meant in terms of like an entire career. I'll be honest. It wasn't until I want to say like when I got to do the military startup that I was like, oh dude, I'm all in. I'm all in. I want to do a full career now. Like up until that point, I was kind of like, I hadn't put a lot of thought to it. Honestly, I was having a lot of fun and I hadn't put a lot of thought to it, but once I did that role, I was like, dude, this is much bigger. And at that same time, I was starting to understand and watch and study and analyze just in my own head other elite leadership. And I was like, man, I want to be like that guy. That guy's incredible. I want to be like that guy. I want to be like that guy. Wow, this is amazing. And so I started tuning in to that as well. And so right around 2007, 2008, somewhere in there was when I had made that kind of mental shift. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm in for the long haul. And obviously we were fully engaged on multiple fronts right around that year group. So I was fully committed. Yeah.
So reading the tea leaves, if I'm reading them correctly, did you get to, between all the training, workup and everything, did you actually get to a combat deployment before the end of your second enlistment?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was in Baghdad. No, I did two. Yeah. I was in Baghdad, for about 7 months. And then I also went to do, I'm trying to think. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. When did I re-enlist? I can't remember. It was somewhere in there. Like I had done a couple, I think, before I re-enlisted. I do know I re-enlisted in a tax-free zone. I do know that.
Sign up bonus. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Uncle Sam.
As far as then when you made the pivot mentally, like, okay, this is going to be a career, what year were you in? Do you remember?
Right around 7 or 8 years. It's right around that. So that was like 2007, 2008, somewhere in there where I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm all in. Let's go. And I was in the middle of that. We were standing up that command. We were building the Rob Garnett, who now runs One More Wave, you've had on this on the show.
Yep.
Rob and I were standing up a lot of the operational department as well as the training department for that new command. When we started that command, it was like 6, 7 of us. Now it's like 512 people and a $1 billion budget. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to go back and see all that they've done over the last 20 years. But yeah, so that was it was right around that time where we were doing some very interesting type of deployments, nuanced deployments, one-offs that weren't as long or longer. So it was a wide variety. Like historically, our deployments on the white side were around 6 months. Pretty consistently to match with a carrier group, and so we kept that over the years, even after 9/11, that cycle of 6 months. Well, at this command, we would do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12-month deployments. Like it was just completely based off the needs of the force. So it was right around that time where I was like, all right, this is amazing. This is awesome. I'm seeing a whole different side of what I thought I was going to see 10 years ago, essentially.
What about for you as far as I'll call it also a pivot to putting yourself in every opportunity for leadership as opposed to maybe trying to avoid it? Was that always part of you, or did you have to be kind of coaxed into leadership positions?
That's a good question. No, I always raised my, I don't want to say like raise my hand or I would, if there was a need, I would raise my hand. I didn't go ferreting through to find it, if that makes sense. But if there was a need, I would just go, oh, I'll do it. Kind of, I was kind of like that. Meaning like I wouldn't ferret through to find something. I would just, in my current role, if there was a need to step up, then I'd go, oh, I'd love the opportunity. Now that's not a pat on the back, honestly. It's more of an ignorance. Back then, I was still kind of figuring everything out, right? So I was just trying to do my job, let alone, leadership roles. I was still trying to do my job as well, as understanding, all of in my ADHD mind, I was still trying to understand all of the assets and resources available to us as a team, as a community. I was still trying to figure all that out so that I could leverage that for our current mission, whatever the mission was, let alone, a leadership role. I was still kind of navigating through all that. And it's funny, you could spend 20, 30 years navigating through that, as we all know, right? So understanding all the resources and assets you have at your disposal, just, I'm preaching to the choir, but that could be a full-time job.
I just say that we've both worked with people who will shy away from a leadership responsibility and people that will drive or move towards it. And I was just wondering, I would imagine that I'm already maybe answering my own question, in that if you were already entrepreneurial before you even went into the military, there was that drive in you to push yourself and to try to succeed. Yeah. And so then when you were given the opportunities, hey, like you said, not necessarily trying to push people out of the way, but you need somebody, I'll raise my hand to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. I agree.
The direction I want to take this to, because before we get to the end of your career, you call it a spiritual moment. You're one of the few people probably has survived stepping on an IED.
Oh, dude. So thank you for giving me the platform to share this story. I love sharing this story. So in 2012, fast forward, I'm now leading a platoon as a tactical lead of a platoon. I'm a chief at the time, the TAC lead of a platoon, and we had gone into Afghanistan. I love talking about this deployment because it was a very unique situation. We got to do what's called unconventional warfare, more specifically village stability operations, which meant that we were going to go work by, through, and with the local population in southern Afghanistan to remove Taliban or foreign fighters from the region, establish white space, and eventually push that white space out, increase their circumference of that white space by denying terrorist activity in that zone.
At that time, was that not a normal mission set for SEALs?
No, it was not common. We had started this. I mean, we'd done, village stability in Vietnam. We had done snippets of it elsewhere, small engagements, but we didn't really start picking this up again until 2009. If memory serves accurate, I think it was right around 2009 that we started this again, and it started sprinkling into the community. And so the reason why I was so excited to do this mission is I'll never forget, I'm in Afghanistan in 2010, prior deployment. I'm there and I see the cover of Time magazine. And the cover of Time magazine is this girl, Aisha, who is 13 years old at the time, and her nose.
Is that the one with the blue eyes?
Yes, beautiful. And her nose is completely gone, completely severed off. And it's a horrific image. And you can't tell on the picture, but her ears, were also cut. But you can't see it on Time. They covered it up. And some of her lip as well. And so the headline of that magazine, of Time magazine, says, "What happens when we leave?" And I remember I'm in Afghanistan. I see it and I'm like, you're right. Like, what happens? What happens if we leave? And so I went down, just like I was talking about earlier, like I love reading. I love pounding books. So I went down some rabbit holes on unconventional warfare, reading a bunch of books by Dr. David Kilcullen, and, counterinsurgency. And I actually reached out to him, Dr. David Kilcullen, and I didn't know this at the time, but he was actually advising Condoleezza Rice on the entire Afghan campaign. So, long story short, he puts me in touch with one of his under mentees, who's Dr. Lee Baggin. Dr. Lee Baggin becomes one of my best friends. I love him. Shout out to you, Lee. And Lee and I start a relationship. And eventually, long story short, I bring him into SEAL Team 3 to work alongside of us as we go and get this mission to go to Afghanistan to do unconventional warfare, which I had been petitioning for. Now backing up real quick, as I'm petitioning to get this mission, I get tasked with a platoon at Team 3 that in the last 2 weeks of their previous deployment. So I'm in Afghanistan in a different location. They're over here in a different location. They lose their AOIC in a helicopter crash. Their helicopter got shot down. And so I walk in. Now this guy, Brandon Looney, was a stud. I mean, he was Captain America. He was probably one of those guys, like I never asked him, but he was probably one of those guys that like didn't have any injuries. He's like one of those, right? Like he was Thor. He was one of those guys that was just a stud. Everyone loved him. Everyone wanted to be him. He was like one of those guys you wanted to marry your sister, like one of those, right? And so he KIA, and so now fast forward, a month later, I walk into the platoon hut and I'm like, "Hey guys, nice to meet y'all. Like, remember, this is Reader's Digest version, but remember the people that just killed your best friend? Yeah, we're going to go back there. We're going to go right to the village and we're going to live alongside of them. We're going to have dinner with them. We're going to help them build roads and bridges and irrigation systems, security footprint, a police force. Like we're going to really help them to establish democracy in the region and really increase the economy." And everyone's like,
I'm sure it went over well.
"Oh," everyone's like back saying, like, "Get out of here. What are you talking about?" And so like, "Screw you." And I was like, here we go again. How am I going to do this? We have to try, Rob and I, my lieutenant, I'm like, we have to try and figure out how we're going to change this dynamic, this culture, improve it, but change it to then go into a foreign nation and change their culture. like a double culture shift. The guys in the platoon at the time just wanted to go back and go after it. They want to go direct action, take care of business, which I understand, but there's a time and place for everything, right? And the time and place for us now was to go do village stability operations. And so I had to try and sell that while also trying to earn everyone's trust in the platoon, because if I didn't earn everyone's trust, how are we going to freaking do this? This is going to be a nightmare. And so it took time. It took a lot of time. So eventually we got there, and that's what I talk about in my book. And they're incredible platoon, filled with warriors, really smart guys. You know the deal. I mean, the world's best. And so we got there. But fast forward now back to that mission. We're in Afghanistan. We're 6 months in to and we had we were about seven months in now. We had almost called mission complete at our spot. And so now I was going to go replicate it and do it again in another hotbed zone, right? So we had established a democracy. We had built, wells, irrigation systems, roads, bridges for the local population. We had set up security checkpoints. We had built a police force out of nothing. Now, by the time we were all said and done, we had around 65 police officers that we recruited and trained and built up this element for the entire region. And now we were handing it off to the local government. And so we were mission complete there, and we're fun story real quick. When we were handing off that handing everything off, as we're handing everything off, the tribal leader gifted me a camel. I'll tell you what, if you've never been around camels, they smell horrific within about 2 days. They are so smelly. Oh my God, they're so bad. So eventually, I think we lasted about 4 days with that camel living with us. And then we were like, all right, man, we can't take care of it. You got to take this thing back.
I was actually picturing you walking across the tarmac with your camel about ready to get on a plane to head home. I'm taking my camel home.
Taking the camel. So we gave the camel back eventually, but man, that thing stunk. It was awesome though. It was really
Were you guys
nice
getting
gift.
no more resistance peripherally, in the sense, as you were establishing and setting up everything, that police force had any resistance kind of moved on and said, all right, we'll go deal with some other town or city?
Right. There was probes, of course, but it had moved on, or we had eradicated it. So now we're going to a new spot. We had planned a mission for about 45 days. We're planning this mission to go into a new hotbed zone, which was, littered with activity. And so as we go into this, we're like, hey, dude, we're going to need a Marine force. We're going to need a legit force to come alongside of us. Otherwise, this is going to be like the Alamo, where we're just locked down in a compound. And what's the point? Like, let's be methodical about this. Let's get a battalion to come alongside of us, and let's do an operation for a week where we actually do cordon and search and push through this entire valley. So we actually did. And Mad Dog Mattis eventually approved the operation, and which was my personal biggest operation, where I had 800 Marines, 24 tanks, 24 helicopters for insertion. Army Corps of Engineers had 22 vehicles, like big industrial vehicles, where they could actually do deployment of roads, and they could actually build a bridge, a micro bridge, like in the field during an operation. Like, it was a huge operation, my biggest still to this day. And 7 jets in constant orbit throughout a week, doing change offs. It was a big op. And so day 3, so imagine, a 4 by 7 mile stretch of a valley, almost like Mission Valley. You know how like Mission Valley, San Diego, the hills up on the south side are not mountains, but like if you're in the valley, you're in a low point. You're in a low point, and it's a tactical disadvantage, obviously. So what we would do, and this is, a full week. So I would take a small contingent of, SEALs along that ridge line and provide sniper overwatch during operations from time to time. And so we're doing that. And one day we see an element of Taliban, and they're pretty far off. Like, we don't have the weapons on us to reach. They're, it's like 1.1 clicks away, maybe 900. It's not where we're going to touch them with what we had on us. Especially, it was definitely a need for pulling in artillery. In my we get to pull in, we were planning on pulling in Kyle Buckett's favorite, which is the HIMAR. HIMAR, if you don't know, is basically a like a picture, like an 18-wheeler, and on the back of it there's like a box that holds like 30 missiles essentially. And these mini missile rockets, they go up to about 90,000 feet above ground level. They launch it from like 40 miles away. It goes up to 90,000 feet and comes down within like a 5-meter precision. And when it detonates, it's wild. It's like, you see, especially if you're like a click away, you see a massive fireball. You're like, oh, there it is, the impact. And then you hear it after like 3 seconds, and then you hear the det. But so you see the fireball, and then it's like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then you hear it. Ba-boom. Anyway, so we're going to call in a HIMAR, and on this element that's maneuvering, this Taliban element that's maneuvering on the Marines down in the valley below. And so I grab my JTAC, my Joint Terminal Air Controlman, and he and I scurry up the hill. He's another SEAL. He and I scurry up a little bit of the hill, maybe another 50, 100 feet higher, just to get a better tactical vantage point. And we get up there, and mind you, we're about to be up there for like 8 seconds max. Like, it was going to be like, this is it in real time. 1,000. See me? Okay. You got it. 2, 3, 1,000. Okay. I'm good. Let's go. Bink down. That was real time. How long we expected to expose ourselves, because we were extremely exposed. It's the middle of the day. The hillside where we were was just brown, right? Just dirt. Just tan dirt. And so we're extremely exposed. Well, we get up there, and I'm doing my thing. I got my back to my JTAC. He's got his back to me. And 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And all of a sudden, he just jabs me right in the rib, like above my plate, my side plate. And he just jabs me and catches me like off guard. And I'm like, dude, what the I like look over, and I'm like, dude, what the freak, man? And he's like, I just see it in his eyes. He's just like that, like an exhausted look. Like, and I'm like, and he just goes, and he points to the ground. And I look down, and I go, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And I look, and as clear as day, it's undeniable. The ground scars, the wires of how they were actually there. We're standing on an IED, undeniable, like clear as day. Like, we must have kicked up some dust right as we got there, made it even worse. And now we're standing on this thing. And so I look at him, and I'm like, dude, and he's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I look at my watch. I'm like, dude, we've got seconds up here. We're exposed. We're extremely exposed. And I look at him, I look back down at the IED, look up at the sky, like I'm about to talk to God. And mind you, I'm not, at this point in my life, I'm not a Christian. I'm a fake Christian. I'm not living a spiritual life. But I look at him, not a hero's act. He's 50 pounds, maybe even like 60 pounds at the time, lighter than me. And I remember going, well, dude, this is like the only thing I could think of. Like, you first. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I got you about like 60 pounds. Maybe I hold this thing down. And he's like, and I'm like, dude, let's just try it. What do we got to lose? Like, we can't key up our radio, because if this thing is a radio frequency controlled device, it's going to tee off. At any second, we're thinking RPG is going to come flying our way. A mortar is going to come flying our way. We're extremely exposed. So we got to get off this hillside ASAP. I'm like, dude, you first. So he's like, all right. And I'm like, hey, tell Candace, my wife. I'm like, tell her I love her, dude. I don't have any kids at the time. I'm like, tell her I love her, man. I love you too. Tell all the guys I love them. And he's like, all right. And so he gets off, runs down the hill. Now I'm there by myself. But as soon as he gets to a minimum safe distance in MSD that he can key up his radio. Now I can receive on my radio. I just can't transmit, right? So as soon as he gets to a minimum safe distance that he can transmit on his radio, I hear him on the radio saying, hey, calling it in. And the response is like, hey, explosive ordnance disposal is 90 minutes out. They're dealing with something else across the battlefield. It's going to take them 90 minutes. And he's like, roger that. We're marking the target. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, okay, we'll mark the target then. They're like, yeah, we're dealing with something else. And he goes, all right, well, Buck's on this thing. And he's exposed. And they're like, dude, we'll get there when we can get there. So now I hear all that. And so now I'm standing on this thing. I'm looking down. I'm like, well, I do a little sinner's prayer. I'm like, dear Lord, dear God in heaven, if you can hear me, please forgive me. And I hear out of nowhere, I've got you. And I'm like, wait, what? Is someone talking to me? Like I pull my my things out, my earplugs out. And I'm like, dude, I think I just heard something. Now I'm going crazy. And I'm like, well, Lord, if that was you, I guess I'm going to step off this thing. If it wasn't you, please forgive me. I've done a lot of bad stuff over time. I hear it again, second time. I've got you. Now, this voice was pure power, pure authority mixed with like kindness and love. It was trippy. It was the trippiest thing I've ever heard up to this point in my life. And I'm like, that is unique. That is a really unique, powerful authority of a voice. And I'm like, all right, well, and now I'm like having a conversation with myself, talking to myself. I'm up there on the side of this mountain, like I'm going crazy. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm like gearing myself up to get off this thing. And I'm like, all right, well, I think that was you. I heard you twice. I'm going to get off this thing. I think I'm good. I think you got me. And then I hear it a third time. I've got you. And that last one was just kind of like all right, guy, like I've got you. Get off. Let's go. Let's go. And so I do. I step off. I run down the hill. Obviously, I'm alive today. It doesn't go off. EOD shows up 2 hours later. We mark it. They go up and do their thing. We're long gone. We're moving on, right? And we're coming back, and they're doing their forensic analysis and field analysis. And we're like, oh, they're there. And so we're like, we run over real quick. They're busy. They got their thing going on. And the EOD guy goes, yeah, hey, Buck, hey, check it out. So what had happened is it was a pressure release, meaning when you stepped on it, you engaged it, but you had to step off for it to release. He goes, it's fascinating, man. Something must have went wrong. I don't know. Maybe it was dirt or something. Who knows? But like, when you guys stepped off, something just held it. Something just held it and it didn't go off. He goes, something just held it. And I'm like, how big was it? He goes, it was 10 pounds of new net explosive weight, means equivalent of 10 pounds of TNT, 9 inches below the surface. So if it had gone off and, my JTAC's still standing next to me, if we would have lived, my lower extremities would be gone. Our reproductive organs would probably be gone as well. And my 3 children and his 2 beautiful daughters wouldn't be with us today. And the EOD guy goes, hey, thank God, huh? It's crazy. And just runs away. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea. And so I'll never forget that moment, man. Because I was, we're middle now. What happens, right? What happens immediately following that? Right back into I'm in the middle of a mission, right? We still have 3 more days to go on this thing. So you get right back into it. We get back to our hooch, back to our little compound, which was, about 30 clicks away. And then you can rehash and discuss and talk to, my JTAC, he's frazzled. He's like, dude, what the flip? I'm like, you didn't hear that voice? And he's like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, man. So Took me years though to hear that voice again, to hear or be prayerful or mindful. I'll be the first one to admit it. I still, even though I heard that, even though I had that moment, I still went my own way and still focused on me, my career, my endeavors, my goals, right? Took me years to finally come back to accept Christ in my heart. So
in a weird way though, for the remainder of that mission, did it feel different after that moment?
It's funny. It didn't, because I was too into my own stuff. Like I was like, wow, that was trippy. Okay, guy, snap out of it, Kyle. Like get back in there. Right. It took me years to kind of really process it. Not going to lie. And even start talking about it really. But no excuses. I don't know. I was so into my own stuff, into my own, goals, my own desires, dreams, hopes, whatever, that I just clogged it all with, what I wanted to do instead of trying to process that.
From a tactical perspective, was that ridge line not something, to your knowledge, that the Taliban was using frequently? Were they anticipating you guys or American forces using that ridge line?
For sure.
I mean, obviously, that's why they set the ID.
Yeah, it was like a little defilade, meaning like a little depression, which we never should. We just, so stupid. It was all my fault. I never should have put myself and him right there. I never should have done that. It was just like, hey, maybe we'll get a little bit of cover right here. And they knew. It was just a complete tactical error on my part. Even getting there, even standing on that thing was a complete tactical error, because we knew all the foxholes had IEDs in them, right? Never should have been there. So yeah, absolutely my fault. Thank you for looking out for me. Yeah.
Coming out of that mission, you're got to be closing in on the tail end of your career, in the sense of from a headspace. Do you know at that point it's 20 and out, or was there ever a point you considered 30? Because I believe you finished up your career at Advanced Training Command, correct?
Yeah, I did. So that was 2012, that mission. I didn't retire till 2019. So still had, 7 more years, but in a couple of deployments. But for me, I didn't know I was going to transition out of the military until probably 18 months before. I had been I'd come back to faith in 2015. So 2018, I'm praying about it. Deciding like, hey, am I going to stay in the military? At this point, we were just about to welcome our 3rd child into the world in 2018. So I'm praying about it a lot. And then we did. My son, Victor, was born in February of 2018. And so I'm like praying on it. And I'm like, dude, because if I sign back up for another troop or another team, I'm going to be deployed. Within, 6 to 9 months, and it's kind of resets the clock for me to go pick up, Master Chief, I'm an E8 at the time. And so I had done a troop, already at Team 3, but how everything worked out in my career at the time, I was going to have to go do another one after the training command to kind of reset and get back in there. Right.
Sponsorship for this podcast comes from Brothers in Arms USA. They're a veteran-owned and operated clothing and accessories brand that's 100% American-made. Every piece tells a story of brotherhood, respect, discipline, and honor, deeply inspired by those who serve, those who have served, and those who have paid the ultimate price serving our great country. Whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a proud patriot, or simply somebody who values high-quality American craftsmanship, they've got something for you. Go check out brothersinarms.com, spelled out fully, brothersandarms.com, and use the promo code TRANSITION20 to get 20% off your purchase.
I'm praying about it. And then, my son's like a month old, and I'll never forget. It's like kind of like a morning like today, actually. It's funny. I haven't talked about this in a while. It's kind of like a morning like today. I'm in San Diego, and I just wake up one morning and I look at my wife and I'm like, honey, I'm good. I'm good. I'm at 19 years. I'm like, she's like, what do you mean? What are you good about? what's going on? I'm like, I'm good. I'm content. Like, I'm content. I'll just go get a job or I'll start a company or whatever. But like, I'm good. I'm going to move on from the Navy. And she just starts crying. She had been holding this in for, we got married in 2005. So she had been holding it in for 13 years. Like, she's like, thank God. She'd been through multiple combat, almost, I think it was 7 or 8 combat tours with her as a spouse. And so she's like, and now she just welcomed our son, our 3rd kid, into the world. And so she's like, thank God. So she's just bawling. And I was like, okay, I guess we're all on the same sheet of music. So, it just hit me. And, I talk about this a lot when I'm, in this space. Like, the space that you've created with your community is amazing. And I'll tell you, whenever that moment hits, like, you're good and you're like, hey, I'm going to transition out, it's irrelevant in the sense of the grand scheme of life. When you move on compared to when I move on, compared to what she moves on or he moves on, it's irrelevant. I remember when I was younger, there's, kind of a cultural thing that happens within the community, like, oh, you're not a lifer, or you're not doing that. Like, hey, man, if a guy or girl serves this country or this city or the county or the state for 4 years, like, dude, there's a lot of Americans not doing that. You should be really proud. And I'm forever grateful for every single one of them that are doing that. Because there's a lot of Americans that are not, right? 330 million to be exact, really, that are not doing it, right? So if you serve for 2, 4 years, 6 years, or you, like me, go 20 years or 30 years, like, that's phenomenal. And I'm forever grateful. And when that moment eventually hits you that it's time to move on, like, dude, that's good. Thank you. You did a great job. You did so much for our country, our city, our states, our counties, whatever. Like, we're grateful. We all should be very grateful. So we put this, though, in our head about the moment when it happens, when you're like, I'm good, I'm ready to transition. We're the ones putting all this nonsense in our heads. It's no one else. I'm telling you guys and gals, if you're listening, please, if you learned something from me today, that outside noise of your time, oh, I got to do 8 or I got to do 12 or I got to do 20, like, that's just nonsense. It's complete nonsense. If you do a second of service, 4 years of service to this country, like, dude, good on you. Thank you.
How much better would this country be if everybody just did 4 years?
I know, because you'd have a whole new level of appreciation. That's for sure.
You'd have a whole bunch of people that grew up quicker. Yeah. Got a better perspective on life and the world.
Yep.
But you hit on something that I really think is important. Had you and your wife not had conversations about you getting out prior to that morning?
Not really. We didn't really go there that often. Just because it wasn't for us, and every couple's different. I'm just telling you our story. For us, it wasn't a healthy conversation because it took me out of the fight, right? It took me out of the moment. It took me out of the growth. It took me out of the leadership. It took me out of whatever, like thinking about that, thinking about what's next wasn't really a healthy conversation until we had committed to like transitioning out. Then it became a very healthy conversation. When I woke up that morning in March of 2018, and I looked at her and said, I'm good. That night at dinner, like, great conversation, but we didn't talk about it that much leading up to it.
Because hindsight being 2020, every deployment you went on, your wife was on the deployment.
Right.
Holding stuff down, worrying about you, all of that. But you brought up a great point, is that we get wrapped up in ourselves. Like I said, I can't be out of my headspace when I'm deploying. But when you say that, hey, I'm done, that weight of burden on her shoulders just falls off.
Oh, immediately. And you could see it, in her face. She was like an elated, like crying, but with elation and happiness and joy, and love.
One of the things that I talk about a lot in every opportunity I can is go do 20 or 30 years in these careers if you enjoy doing them. But just understand your family's paying a huge price for it. And
Massive.
figure out a way to go through this career together.
Yes. It's so well said. So well said. You've got to. And it's tough if your spouse is a very dependent person. It's a tough job to be in. It's really tough. We have a high divorce rate, unfortunately, in the SEAL teams. It's really sad. And it's because of we have that mentality of the caretaker that we're attracted to, right? Like we're attracted to the nurses, to the hairstylists, to the doctors. We're attracted to those types of professions as warriors because we want to be taken care of, right? Well, when you're gone and they don't have anyone to take care of, it can be challenging. It can be really challenging for us. So figuring out, like you said, figuring out that healthy relationship sooner than later is tough. It's so challenging, man. Being away from your wife for a year is so hard. It's so hard. My wife and I were on the verge of divorce multiple times, to be clear. It's only because of the grace of God that we are still together, truly. And I'm so proud to say though, now, like we're better than ever. I find I'm more sexually attracted to my wife than the day I met her today, because we got to a place of a healthy relationship, right? But we didn't have that overnight. It took time, it took work, it took therapy, like all the things, right? And if you can get ahead of that, if you're going to join this career and you're already married, if you can get ahead of that, dude, power to you. Where's the camera? Power to you. Power to you. Please do it. I wish I had. I wish I would have, because it would have made my life a lot easier when I was going through multiple combat tours, because it was rough. It was rough for us. No joke.
And that's a double-edged sword to these careers.
Right.
There's the op tempo, first and foremost. There's a level of, whether you like to hear it or not, there's a level of selfishness that comes with choosing these careers.
Yeah.
And to put yourself in a position where you can go save the world, to then have to worry about somebody going, when are you going to be home? When are you going to be home? When are you going to be home?
Right.
They're not normal relationships.
Yeah. And especially now, I've been out since 19. So it's been 6 years, right? Like I would be hard pressed to go on a deployment and turn my phone off for like 2 weeks right now. That would put a lot of strain on my family. But why? Because what's happened over the last couple of years? We have text, we have apps, we have all this connectivity to each other. I mean, you're tethered, right? You take that, just think about that bare necessity, that bare basic concept. You untether someone from their family in a world where everything's connected. Everything's connected. You untether that, it's hard. It's really hard. So if you're married and you're thinking about going into special forces, hey, why don't you and your wife untether for 2 weeks? See how it goes. Just give it a whirl.
So as you were coming to the end of your career, you not even technically, had already put pieces in place, because you started a business or got involved in the side hustle business while you were still active.
I did.
So you were already thinking about the afterlife.
Yeah. In 2007, I found that there was it's not a loophole. It's completely justified and legal. There is a law that allows military service members with command approval to have outside employment. They had done this years ago when individuals were getting in trouble by running, side hustles that were completely above board and good for communities, good for, economies, et cetera, et cetera. And so if command approved and you had the capability to do it, you could get approval. And so I did. I went out and got approval, and I helped my wife launch her first business in 2007, hair salon down in Kensington, San Diego, right near San Diego State. And then in 2010, a second location for her simultaneously. I was looking at, here's a fun one. I haven't talked about this in a while. I was in 2009, I was trying to build TikTok. Ironically, I was trying to build TikTok. I was getting just slam door out of in my face as I was trying to raise capital. It's hard to raise money from Silicon Valley venture capital firms when you're in Iraq or Afghanistan. It's almost impossible. And so I couldn't do it, and I failed miserably. But I was trying to build an app that could essentially tell you, so check this out, you'll laugh at me. It was a live male to female ratio live of nightclubs, restaurants, bars. So you could go essentially like a dating app to a degree. But then I took it a step further. I was like, oh yeah, dating, cool, whatever. But you could take it a step further so you could see the live atmospherics, the live aura, the live vibe of an environment. And we started coding it out, wireframing everything out, but I just couldn't raise capital for it. And so I learned a lot in that failure. I've had multiple failures over the years. And then fast forward a couple of other endeavors that I'd either like helped with or consulted with, just because I loved being around this ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I just love it. And then eventually I met with Alex West, who had founded One More Wave. And I was like, dude, I'd just been on a deployment. James McFadden, a Navy SEAL, young Navy SEAL. He's on his first deployment. We're over in the Middle East. He's in Northern Africa at the time, but we're attached, administratively, we're attached. He's take on to them, but ad con to me. It was, all that military stuff. Anyway, he's a brand new Navy SEAL. He and I had been surfing right before the deployment here in San Diego, right? On his first mission, he gets shot up, and it results in a very, very high leg amputation, right? And I remember sitting in the Middle East at the time going, gosh, dang it. Like, dude, we love surfing. Like, James was so good. Like, I'm telling you, he was like an amateur, could have gone amateur pro circuit. He was at that level. And I'm like, dude, that was a good outlet. Like, what's he going to do? And I started looking up like resources of what, veterans could do for surfing if they had dealt with, a blow like this. There wasn't a lot out there. There was like 1 week programs, but it wasn't like what I was thinking, which was like a consistent kind of lifestyle support. And so I come back from that deployment, I find out Alex had just started One More Wave, and I'm like, dude, this is amazing. This is exactly what I was thinking about starting or helping or whatever. Like, dude, let me help you. This is amazing. So I did. I jumped in, and Alex and I really blew that thing up to what it is today. And then we brought Rob Garnett in, and you had Rob on the show. I highly recommend everyone checking that one out. He's awesome. He was actually my mentor early on at the startup in the teams. And even before that, we were at SEAL Team 1 together. But I love Rob. So Alex and I, we blow One More Wave up, and we start manufacturing customized surfing equipment for disabled veterans. And then we start realizing as we're doing this, that there's a bigger opportunity within what our mission, which is, community. You know the deal. As guys and gals start exiting this, the community that they were in, people start looking for new communities. Well, this new community started really growing and really started having some arms and tentacles in a good, positive way. Now it's like 10,000 people strong all over the world. What we've done is we've adopted technology. So like guys and gals could get on like an app and say, hey man, I'm going to be traveling to Pendleton, or I'm going to be traveling to San Diego, or I'm going to be traveling to Florida or wherever. I'm going to be going down to, Boston, wherever. And I would love to go surfing. I don't know the area, but I have a handicap, and I can't get down to the water's edge if someone doesn't help me. Could someone help me? And dude, within seconds, people will be like, ding, 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 ding. I'll be there. What do you need? I'll be there. I'll have a red cap on, red shorts. Look for me. And these link ups are now happening on almost a daily basis all around the world. So it's really, really cool. Really proud of that mission. So, served almost, I mean, they're nearing, I think 1,000 veterans served with customized serving equipment, and community. The community is, I think, over 10,000 strong now. Yeah.
And they also have regular meetups.
Yeah. In fact, this Saturday is one at Del Mar. It's really cool. Really cool. So they do third Saturday every month, third Saturday. So it's really, really neat. And we learned a lot. I personally learned a lot through that opportunity working with Alex. I learned a lot around nonprofit organizations, nonprofit fundraising, and how challenging that can be. A lot of people don't know this, but like 5,000 applications go into the IRS every month for 501c3 status. And so unlike, Walmart competing against Costco, or Sam's Club, I guess, against Costco, right? Unlike that, what you have in the nonprofit space, you're all fighting for the same exact dollar. So, you could be Wounded Warrior or One More Wave, or you could be, feeding, hungry children in Africa. You're all going to be fighting after the same exact dollar because you're giving the donor the same exact thing, which is what? A tax deductible donation. Right. So you're competing against the same dollar as you're trying to raise funds and encourage and spread your mission, and do more good for the world. So it's a challenge. It's no joke. Raising capital for a nonprofit is a fascinating world. And so what One More Wave has done, which is really cool, is we tried to get to a place, and they're still continuing it and slowly getting there, to a place of self-sustainability. Instead of trying to go out and try and compete with some of these behemoths that are doing these massive like galas, which is really hard for kind of a grassroots effort to a degree. It's really hard. What we've done is we just created an apparel line. And so the apparel line fuels the mission, which is really cool. And so we're seeing some really great success with that over the years. So it's a really fascinating industry to get into in nonprofit world, especially for veterans. I think there's like 35,000 veteran charities. So you're competing against all of those. And often I'll get asked by people, especially transitioning veterans, like thinking about starting a new one. I'm like, hey man, that's great. That's amazing. But just do a search and see if it's truly unique. Because you might want to go look at joining one and helping one, like what I did with Alex, as opposed to just competing against them. Try and see if there's someone you could just join the charge, help them elevate, learn along the way. And if it doesn't work out, then you go start your own. But be cautious about starting your own because there's so much saturation in the market. There's a lot. I mean, you look up equestrian rides for disabled veterans, you're going to find 150 charities. Nothing bad about any of them. They're all doing amazing things. I'm just saying we're in the conversation around transition. If you're going to transition into starting a charity, do your research. Because it is a saturated market and there's a lot out there, a lot.
Well, even boiling it back to its basic, if you've got an idea, at least do some research on it because there may be another entity already doing that. Like I said, hey, I'm going to put veterans on horseback. Well, there's a ton others. Now, if you find that in your operational space, there isn't, okay, that's a good jump off point. Yeah. But then that goes back to what you're saying. Why not go work with one? Because they all learn everything about it.
And you know what they all need? They all need you. They all need your help. They all do. They really do. They could really leverage your leadership, So if you're thinking about it, I'll tell you, reach out to them because they could all, you're so right, Paul. They all could really use your leadership.
So when was your exit date?
From the military? 2019. Yeah. So the fall of 2019.
How was it for you that next day when you were a civilian?
Oh, the next day was great. I'm not going to lie. I was a little hungover.
Okay. How was the week after?
The next day was great though. The next week was wonderful. And then very quickly, it became kind of chaotic for me. I was focused on starting a new business, and so it's 2019, end of 2019. I'm starting a new business, going into the spring of 2020. Little thing
Great
called
time to be a new business.
We were actually, so check this out. How would I frame this? I had a mentor of mine and a friend of mine, and the three of us, long story short, had decided to start a new endeavor. We were going to build a venture capital firm focused on clinical trial technology. One of my partners, David, had great experience in that world, and he showed Mike and I, my old business partner, he showed us a path to an opportunity, which was at the time, clinical trial technologies were so outdated in pharma. If you were running a clinical trial, for example, for like Pfizer or any of them, Sanofi or whoever, they are running their stuff on notepads, pencils, and papers. They're like 18 or 20 years behind other industries in their tech adoptions. So I find out this. So check this out. I'm going to go down a story. This is actually a fascinating story. There's this woman in San Diego. This is years ago. This is like 2018, 19, somewhere in there. She had a tumor on her forehead, and she, as a last-ditch effort, she's looking at death's door. As a ditch effort, she signs up for a clinical trial here in San Diego, actually, where they are injecting potent oncolytic viruses into cancers and tumors. And in her case, this is wild. This tumor on her forehead's like this big, right? In her case, they start injecting smallpox into her tumor on her forehead. And what essentially happens, the body creates white blood cells. They start countering and start attacking the tumor and the smallpox. And so they start seeing great results. And this thing starts going down, 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 down. And they're great. Keep going, stay with the trial. They're seeing great results, and it's slow going down. And then all of a sudden she doesn't show up. So they can't get a hold of her. So they start calling her. They start, emailing her. They start sending letters to her house. And it's no response. It's crickets. And so eventually the letters to her house start coming back, return to sender. So they do what every clinical trial does, is they sit down and they go, all right, they write down on their notes, lost contact with the patient, FDA regulation, lost contact with the patient, possibly deceased. And they keep going on and they keep focusing on the trial. A year and a half goes by and she comes waltzing in. She's 40 years old-ish, comes waltzing in, forehead's clear. Her hair is voluptuous and full. She's got a tan. She looks great. She's fit. They're like, what the hell? And she's like, guys, I just came on to say thank you again. What do you mean thank you again? She's like, yeah. Thank you again. You guys saved my life. I'm so grateful, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, you guys, I'm loving life. I sold all my possessions because of you. You cured me. Because of you, I sold everything I have. I've been backpacking in Europe for the last year and a half and just exploring and just living life to the fullest. And they're like, that's great, Sally. But, she's like, what's up? And they're like, well, the problem is, Sally, is because we lost contact with the patient, we have cured cancer, literally. But since we lost contact with the patient, FDA will not accept not a single ounce of data on you because of an FDA regulation, because we lost contact with the patient, because we didn't have technology in place to monitor you in Europe.
There's no way to prove that it was our testing.
Exactly. And that story, when I found that out, that story happens time and time and time again. It's riddled through the industry. And what happens is a clinical trial technology comes up and two things happen. Either one of the bigs scoops them up and acquires them, or they fizzle, or private equity scoops them up and then parses out pieces of their technology to one of the bigs. Because there's not growth stage capital at the time when we were doing this, there wasn't growth stage capital in the market to actually help them to truly get through and scale to the next tranche of business. And so me and my partners were trying to solve that issue. And I had never run a venture capital fund before. I was a first-time fund manager, as were my partners. And we went out and we blitzed the market, trying to raise capital. And then COVID happens and everyone's like, everyone's whoa. And we couldn't raise. We were trying to. We got a soft yes for a $10 million investment. We were raising $250 million. $10 million is not what you need 250. And so then COVID happened, and then out of nowhere, I'm doing all this, and out of nowhere I get a call from one of my buddies, and he's like, hey, there's this data center company called Core Scientific. They need a COO. You should go join them. I'm like, well, I think we're circling our first investment for our fund. We're about there. We're about to close on this deal, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I know, but you should really take this phone call. And so I'm like, all right. I tell my wife, and she's like, you should take the phone call.
Before we get into Core Scientific.
Sure.
As you're approaching your transition out.
Oh, yeah.
What pieces were you putting in place? This VC firm, was that already kind of falling in line before you transitioned out?
Yes, it was. That's a great question. Yeah. So when you get out of the military, especially if you've done a longer amount of time, especially later on, I would say right around 2015, 16, somewhere in there, SOCOM started making a better transition into enabling and supporting guys as they were retiring. And so I was lucky and fortunate. AJ, by the way, AJ was the guy that replaced me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So AJ, he mentored me. I love you, buddy. And he was the perfect guy to take over as I was transitioning out. And then he came in and he ran the training command. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, please go listen to my brother AJ from another mother. And so as I'm working with AJ and he's taking over, now I'm kind of backseating him. And it gave me 6 months to really start kind of working on my transition, my exit strategy, et cetera, et cetera. In that period of time, I was doing all of my medical stuff, all my medical requirements, all my administrative requirements in the military, getting ready for transitioning to the VA, et cetera. As well as in parallel to that, I was still with One More Wave, still working on One More Wave, still growing One More Wave. I had just hired Rob, and I was also the CEO at the time, or managing director at the time of One More Wave. In parallel to that, I was helping my wife's business. In parallel to that, I was starting this fund. So it was slowly building and growing. The fund, for those who don't know, if you've never put together a venture capital fund, you can expect anywhere between $40,000 to around $250,000 in legal bills just on the formulation of all the legal requirements. It's quite an endeavor. And so me and my partners funded the whole thing, self-funded it as we were growing it and building it. And so as I was transitioning out of the military, I was starting that process of all of that, right? Of the VC, of our fund thesis, of our formulation documentation, et cetera.
Two pieces that tie into this question. Dropped out of high school, but you've talked about being a voracious reader and always enjoying reading.
Yeah. Was
going back and getting any college education part of your 20 years in the Navy, or?
I would do like a cherry pick, right? Like I would take a course here, a course there, an executive course here, an executive course there, but I'm not a good student. I'm not. It's funny. I just learned this. I'm the dummy. I'm the late one to the table on this one. I just learned that maybe you don't even know this. I don't know. But like, I just learned that ADHD individuals have something very unique of how they learn. If you remember in the military, it's prevalent what I'm about to say. How do we learn? We learn from our mistakes, right? We hear that nonstop. All right, we're going to, in training, we're going to make a mistake so you can learn, right? I'm sure you've heard that, right? Guess what? ADHD people don't learn from their mistakes. I never knew this till like a couple weeks ago. We actually learn from small, micro, incremental wins over time. And so I'm not a great student. I know that about myself. It's very hard for me to stay micro-focused on just a singular subject for, long periods of time. It's very challenging for me. And so, especially if it's something I'm not interested in, especially if it's something I'm not interested in. So for me, I could only do courses, especially after high school. I could only do courses that I was really interested in, right? And so those were mostly like entrepreneurial or leadership types of courses that I wanted to try and better myself. If it was like biology 301, I was hurting.
And the reason why I asked that is because
Chem 401, I'm hurting. I'm dying.
you get me beyond math 1, and I'm just struggling. My kid's talking about calculus, and I'm like, yeah, you lost me at C.
Okay.
The reason why I asked, or I go down that path, is what's interesting about your story is I'm sure a lot of people here, we're eventually going to get to your book, tell your story with Core Scientific. Oh, he was an officer. It was real easy for you were an E-dog.
Yeah.
You got no college.
Nope.
And you were still able to position yourself to, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, succeed very well. And so that's what I think is really interesting about your story is you don't fit what in it. Remember you were talking about the boxes, like this is your typical SEAL. He's going to be this tall.
Right.
You don't check a lot of the boxes.
No, I don't check any of them. It's right. For me, I just loved and just worked hard, right? Like I worked hard. I never gave up. And I always knew I wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but I always knew I was going to outwork everybody. Like just go hard. And again, I didn't know this until a couple of weeks ago. I'm laughing because those small incremental wins over time of the hard work, the effort that was going into it was what was helping my success. Right. And I didn't know that. I wish I would have known sooner. So if you're young and you're listening, I hope you learned sooner than me. Right. But it was literally those little micro wins along the way. Because we've all had, but I especially have had 1,000 times more, not 1,000 to the one, but I have 1,000 times more losses or failures than I've had wins. My wins are not, I've got, 5 or 6 like big wins in my life, but I have a lot of losses, right? A lot. But
that goes back to that resilience piece of not giving up though.
Right. You're right. And that hard work or finding what makes you happy and joyful and consistently driving towards that, I think is where I've been successful, if that makes sense, right? Like I know that I don't want to focus on all the administrative tasks. I can do it and it's not going to be good. It might even be ugly, but I can hold down the fort administratively for the business if I need to, but I'd rather bring in a killer in that realm, right? I'm not going to be the chief engineer. I need to bring in a killer in that realm. I'm not going to be the CTO. I need to bring in a killer in that realm. And, that's, self-leading teams that win. I really believe that. Like, how do we, back to you said it earlier, actually, is like, how do we get to a point where we replace ourselves? That's where kind of been my guiding underlying principle, is trying to get to a place where I'm the dumbest guy in the room, but also along the way, I'm replacing myself so that other people can elevate the entire organization. And I think that's how I've been able to succeed. I mean, the book's a perfect example. I didn't write that by myself, and I can't. Some people can. That's their strength. It's not mine. It's my weakness. And so what I have to do in that sense is, for example, for my book, I had to bring in a co-author. I had to bring in a writer. I had to bring in a editor. I had to bring in an analyst. I had to bring in a researcher, because if you look at the back of my book, like, you'll see all the bibs. I mean, I could fill this room with the amount of research that went into it, so we weren't just blowing smoke out. So point of why I say all that is, I know thyself, and I know we so often want to focus and spend all this time on our failures and our weaknesses. And I've gotten, I think, pretty good of going, yep, that's my weakness. Okay, hand it off, because that's my weakness. Hand it off. And now later on in life, I'm getting even better and better and more refined in that handoff. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Going towards then Core Scientific, your buddy gives you a call, says, hey, you need to look at this position.
Yeah.
Walk me through that company and that experience.
I am forever grateful. That was that, I'll tell you, a win and a loss, however you want to call it. But I really believe more a win in terms of how much I learned. Really do. I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. So my buddy calls me up. Long story short, they put me they put me through the ringer. The head of HR at the time was a former Walmart HR professional, and Sharon was her name. And Sharon put me through the ringer, bringing me into that role. She put me through like 18 interviews nonstop. It was,
and you were going for a chief of staff position, right?
No, I was going for the COO position. Okay. I was going for the COO position. And so so she puts me through the ringer. I lose out. I don't get the job. The reason why I was actually offered the opportunity is when my buddy called, he then connected me to the founder of the company. The founder of the company, who was not an executive in the company, wanted to bring in a COO. So the founder calls me, we get on, we fall in love, bro love. And I like him, he likes me, he's quirky, I'm quirky, right? And we start, a professional relationship in that sense of he's like, hey, you're a great candidate. You'd be perfect for this role. So then he introduces me to the CEO of the company. And from there, they start their whole process. Long story short, I don't get the job. The founder calls me. I'm like, oh, wait, let me back up. It's a Saturday afternoon, early evening. It's like 5 p.m. And I get the call that I don't get the job. And so I'm on the phone with them. They're doing the exit thing. And so we decided to go with someone else. Like, son of a biscuit. I was actually, for the last couple of weeks, I was starting to really get excited about doing this. I was looking at property, blah, blah, blah. At the time, they were, HQ was up in Seattle. So I was even thinking about going to move to Seattle from San Diego, which, I'm a surfer. San Diego, Seattle, you could tell I was excited about it. To leave the community here to go do that. I was getting really thrilled about the idea. Up in
Seattle too.
Yeah. So it's Saturday afternoon, 5:30-ish, and I get the call, and it's a no. And I remember just sitting down on my bed. I'm in the bedroom. I sit down on my bed. I just look at the ceiling. I'm like, Lord, what was that all about? Like, I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, what was that all about? 2 minutes, no joke. 2 minutes later, my phone rings. It's the founder. He's like, he's like, what the, I can't believe they didn't pick you. You're my pick. You're my guy. He's like, and by the way, he's poised at this time to become a multi-billionaire. And so he's like, screw it, come work for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, come run the family office, essentially. So this was just one of his 100 holdings. He had 127 LLCs, 78 operating companies, blah, blah, blah. And so long story short, he and I work out a deal. The chairman of the board of Core, we're still private at this time, is the founder and him are buddies. And so I go to work for the founder with his family office out of Vegas. I go do that for a little while, and I'm crushing it for them. I'm crushing it. Finally, the chairman of the board of Core steps down into the CEO role. When that happens, he's like, hey, if I'm going to step into the CEO role, I'm going to need a guy. Well, founder's like, hey, Kyle's your guy. So literally, I'm home in San Diego for the weekend, and I'm literally at Del Mar with my kids at like 6 a.m. for a One More Wave event. And I get this, hey, we need you on Zoom right now. I'm like, dude, I'm at Del Mar. He's like, we need you on Zoom. So I get on Zoom, just the three of us. And he's like, hey, Mike's stepping into the role. You're going to go with him. So I'm like, what am I to do? They're like, you're going to be his number two. You're going to be his guy. You're going to be his guy. He needs a guy that's with him in this process to be his eyes and ears, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, what about what I'm doing with you? He goes, I'll find someone else. Don't worry about it. You got to go. This is my biggest holding. Let's go. So I do. I joined Mike. Mike actually, within 24 hours, Mike flies down to Brownfield, down in IB, picks me up in his jet, and we're off to the races. And we restructure over the next several months. We restructure the entire company. We start several M&A mergers and acquisitions. We acquire over the next 12 months. We acquire 2 more companies. We raise the valuation as we're scaling the company over a couple of years to $6.7 billion. We become the world's largest data center company in crypto that's publicly traded. We take it public on NASDAQ. And an IPO at a $6.7 billion valuation.
You like tech stuff, huh?
I do. I like people more. So let's be clear. I do like tech stuff, but I like people more. But
in my mind, where I'm going with somebody, I'm trying to picture myself as somebody who's sitting there listening to this conversation. And the question that's jumping out of my head is, and I talk about this a lot, networking is important. Putting yourself around the right people is important.
Real quick, I'm going to the Honor Foundation tonight to teach that class. Just as a fun aside.
My question is, this very rich person that you were connected with, how do you make that connection, and where does that relationship start?
Only through the network, because my buddy gave me the call and said, hey, his buddy was looking for somebody, and he's like, dude, for some reason, you were the guy I thought of. I asked my friend Brad years later, I was like, hey man, why was I the only? He goes, I don't know, Kyle, it was the weirdest thing. Like, I think it was divine, but he goes, it was the weirdest thing. When they asked me if I knew somebody, he goes, you were the only I couldn't think of like 2 or 3. They asked me for 3 people to recommend. He goes, you were the only one. I was like, that was divine. He goes, yeah. And in Brad's defense, he goes, yeah, maybe it was divine, but I think it was. I don't know why he didn't give him 2 or 3 other names other than that. So he did. He gave them my name, and then we connected. Then we met and we sparked it, and
Any of this network former military?
Yeah, Brad was former Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, his name's Brad Hicks. His dad. This is so crazy. Brad is a rare diamond in the rough. His dad is, the infamous Tom Hicks in those circles, meaning he owns like the Dallas Stars, right? Like billionaire family. And I'll never forget Brad. He's living in my building downtown. I won't say all your business, Brad. I love you. But he's living in my building downtown. He had just checked into the teams. Candace and I were still without kids. We're living downtown. Brad checks into the team. He's a brand new guy. And I see him one evening, and I press floor 4. I'm active duty military living downtown. I press floor 4 and he presses like penthouse. And I'm like, and he's a brand new guy. And I'm like, where are you going? Oh, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go change out and go work and blah. I was like, wait, that's your apartment? And he's like, oh yeah. And he's so like humble about it. He's such a good dude. I love him to death. But I remember a couple of weeks later, I'm like, hey dude, like we got to talk about this. Like, why are you way up there? And he told me the whole story. And I was like, dude, because that's rare, right? To have someone come in at the ground level of the military and, you don't have to work. He's one of those kids that like you see that TV show Succession on HBO, like that's his life, right? He doesn't have to work. So for someone like that, that's rare. And he's so humble, such a hard worker. Now, fast forward years later, he was out of the military when he gives me this call. And so he's like, dude, for some reason, I was just thinking about you. And I'm like, because him and his dad, I think it was his dad or maybe his brother, I can't remember. They were large shareholders in the company. So now you had the shareholders, going, hey, Kyle would be a great guy. And I was like, dude, I'm so humbled. I'm blessed that you're thinking about me. And it was just network. It was just network, just like what you said. Just being a good dude, Brad, just being a good dude and thinking about me, Now,
you've already mentioned multiple companies that you started being involved with One More Wave at the executive level. Mm-hmm. What was the learning curve for you, though, at that company? Because you mentioned the scaling and the rapidness at which it scaled.
I think there's one thing that we often don't give ourselves enough credit for. We, especially in the military, we don't have an HR department, right? We don't really we might have an admin department for sure, but they're really working for us, right? For the most part, admin is reporting into us at the command level and working to support us. They're not working for, shareholders. They're not working for, you get my point. The point why I bring that up is we are also the human resources, right? And so in the military, you're dealing with a massive amount, and in LE, you're dealing with a massive amount of human resource problems or challenges or even opportunities that private sector really doesn't see. I mean, for example, right? Someone's, dealing with a domestic violence issue at home. We're dealing with it, right? We're dealing with it, right? Like you work at, Facebook, or Sony or something. You're not dealing with that. It's just, okay, yeah. And they kind of back out. But in the military, you're dealing with all kinds of issues, and we don't really get enough credit for that. And so, as you're dealing with those issues, the deal, you get better at it. You get more refined, you get more care and more passion for it as time goes on. And so that innate behavior that's happening is now you can exploit for the better when you go to private sector. So I don't think and same with budgets, right? Same with budget constraints, forecasting, resources, assets. We do a really good job. I mean, Amazon's incredible, but they ain't moving a city across the Pacific Ocean every 6 months. We are, right? And so we don't get enough credit for, our global supply chain, our logistics, our care, our safety protocols. Dude, if I'm running the Advanced Training Command, my safety protocol compared to Harvard, get out of here, Harvard. You have nothing compared to what I'm dealing with as it pertains to HR. If a student has an HR issue, is Harvard dealing with it? No. Is the instructor dealing with it? No. They are if you're at if you're at a training command. They're dealing with safety concerns, life-threatening safety concerns. And so we don't get enough credit a lot of times for all of that experience. And I wish I had a little red pill, a little blue pill, whatever, that I could give guys and gals when they're getting ready to transition, that they could take all of their experience and they could take a pill and understand civilian vernacular or verbiage overnight. That to me is the biggest challenge as it pertains to transitioning to private sector, is understanding the vernacular. All of our experience, let's be clear, outweighs private sector. Sure, there's, Wall Street and financial markets and venture capital, hedge funds, and all the manipulation of finances. I get all that. I get it. They do it a lot better than the military does. I understand that. But all of the operational execution, nobody comes close. So if you can parlay that out to private sector, if we can just learn the vernacular and the verbiage quicker, that's really the key to success. Because once guys and gals understand that vernacular, that verbiage, they can be extremely effective. But the problem is it takes time, right? I was able to get that vernacular because I was kind of in it for a while, right? But if I hadn't have had that experience, I'd still be, and let's be clear, I'm still learning every day. I'm learning. But you've got to be willing to put on your learning cap, get back into that humble mindset, the humility mindset of, hey, I've got to learn this new language. It's DLI. It's a language institute. You need to learn the vernacular of how private sector does business. And if we could give a blue pill to do that, you and I would be very wealthy people, my friend. I wish we could, but I've been trying to figure out how to get that blue pill or red pill to guys and gals for the last almost 7-8 years now. I can't figure it out because the only thing I can point to get it is time. It takes time. It takes iterative work. It takes, some steps up to the plate, step up to bat, and some strikeouts. It really does, to get all the vernacular that you can take your operational experience and then now place it over here. It takes time. It's frustrating. If you don't have the patience to do it, it's frustrating because you're at the pinnacle. If you're one of us, you're at the pinnacle. I mean, we see it in the NFL, right? Like, guys are going, hey, I just won a Super Bowl, and now they're going to retire. They're like, what do I do now? Right. It's the same thing. At least they have high salaries. We don't, right? We don't have high salaries. Like, my last year in the military, my taxable income was like $65,000, right? So you don't have a nest egg to help you start. It's a real challenge, obviously, but that vernacular is, the sooner you can get there, the better. And the only way I've found that guys and gals can really get there is taking some swings at the plate. We have an interesting stat, and then I'll shut up. But like, there's a really interesting stat in SOCOM. 97% of SOCOM bodies that transition out of the military, 97% go from job 1 to job 2 in the first 18 months. Because they weren't aligned with their purpose, their values, their core values, et cetera, et cetera. So you just got to get over it and go, hey, I know I'm not, I'm unique. You're unique. All of our people listening are unique snowflakes, but their situation isn't unique. And that is the thing that we really need to help each other with, understanding like, hey, there's a lot of people. What you're doing right here with this audience is incredible. I wish we would have had it when I was transitioning. It's incredible to hear all these stories, right? And the more we lean into that community to help each other, because our situations aren't unique. We are, but our situations are very, very similar in the sense that we got to get some reps.
And what I want to drive home is there is a personal accountability and a personal responsibility that each of us has to take on.
Right.
And that's what your story is interesting to me, because you brought to the table that desire for being a business owner. That was already in your DNA.
Right.
There are a lot of men and women, and you don't have to get to a tier 1 level.
Right.
You do 20 or 30 years in these careers. And like you said, institutionally, you are getting so much operational knowledge just by doing these jobs.
Right.
But if you keep your head below that radar and just do your 20 or 30 years and then pop up and think that you're just going to be able to transition into that next job, it's not going to work. No. You still have to do that external practices, processes, learning.
Yeah.
So yes, you're getting a natural education by doing these jobs, but in turn, there still is some personal responsibility for you to expand yourself to make yourself marketable.
Yeah. Well said. And it's funny, the longer and longer you're away from the old community, it becomes easier, obviously, to see those challenges, right? For example, I was talking to one of my buddies. He's a, command master chief now. And he's to be clear, this individual is a beast of a human, very intelligent, very sharp, very with it, very caring, has a wife, kids. I mean, he loves them. He's a very loving human. But the difference for him and for me, because he's still military, right? He's still active duty. He's like, jump. They didn't jump high enough because he can do that, right? Well, in a couple of years, and he knows he can't do that in a couple of years. But right now, when we're talking and when we're talking about, BSing around a fire or something, talking about a personnel problem, he's like, yeah, I told him to do this. I'm like, man, that's nice. I remember that, but to your point, if you're not slowly prepping for like that shift or even understanding what those shifts are, it's, rank is a different animal when you leave, right? It's a different animal. Just because you said something doesn't mean that everyone's, what? Why are we doing that? That you said to. Well, that doesn't fly anymore. It doesn't fly anymore at all. So that's a big mind shift for a lot of people.
Best advice I ever heard, an old cop that had transitioned into the civilian sector. He goes, if I can give you any piece of advice when you move to the civilian sector, you go from telling to asking.
Yeah. That's good.
You don't tell people what to do anymore. You ask them to do it.
Yeah. That's good. I like that one a lot. Or ask them how they want to do it. Even. That's good. I love that.
You mentioned the Honor Foundation. So you got involved with it. Was that something that you wanted to go do, or did you have somebody in your ear going, hey, you really need to think about this program?
Yeah, I started having friends that were having rocky transitions out of the military. And Joe Musselman, who's a friend of mine, was starting up the Honor Foundation. And so I wanted to get involved, like back in like 2014, 15, I started getting involved just from like an ambassador standpoint. You know the deal, especially now I'm a senior guy in the SEALs, and I have people that are getting out and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next. So as an ambassador, even though I hadn't even gone through the program, I started directing and pointing people to the program. And I started witnessing the opportunities that these guys were now facing, accepting, and succeeding at through the program. So I very quickly got all in because I had seen, especially, 2014 in SOCOM, we were just then like starting to slow down. The previous, 13 years had been busy. And so now fast forward, I think it was 14 or 15 when Joe started the Honor Foundation, there was the demand, and I was seeing this demand quite regularly. Especially now, let me think, 2015, I had 40 guys that were working with me. Right before that, I had about 65 on my previous deployment because I was doing a troop chief. And so, 65, you're going to have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 guys that are going to be at any given time, like this is their last hoo-yah, they're about to, transition out. And so to now be able to have a resource to point them to and go, hey, there's a program. It's an executive style course that is putting guys through a 3 to 4 month course that is helping them and find purpose, values in their next tranche of life. This is incredible. Then I got to start seeing over time the product of it, and it was incredible. Really cool. Really cool.
I've had the fortunate opportunity to not only interview people who have gone through the program, I've done a couple interviews at the facility.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's a great program. Is it continuing to grow in the sense, because I know there's multiple chapters now, I know there's multiple locations.
Mm-hmm.
I guess from the negative side of it, how do we get something like that for the average military?
They're trying. Actually, Honor Foundation's trying to do that right now. And I think between them and several other organizations, I think it's going to have to be outsourced, right? Like you've got to let the nonprofits help and do this. And I think big DOD is starting to really take that on, especially with the VA. I think the VA also wants to really try and help that process as well. And so the Honor Foundation is trying to figure out how because that's a big jump, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go from SOCOM to DOD.
Yeah, it's one of the advantages of, at the end of the day, SOCOM communities, small community compared to the the greater majority of the military.
Yeah, exactly. And so they are looking at how they can make that leap. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, but I think what Matt Stevens, who's the CEO, I think what he's looking at doing potentially over the next several years is figuring out how they can do kind of a tech adoption of sorts where they can bring technology in to do kind of a distance learning. Other than that, I don't know, because then if they didn't do distance learning, the asset requirement would be so astronomical. Just because you have, at every single base in the military, you have TAPS or whatever it's called for the Army. But, in the Navy, they've got a 1 week course where you go somewhere and you take a 1 week course of transitioning out. And you don't really learn much in that course at all. But their job is to field warfighters, not necessarily transition them out. So the Navy, Army, Marine Corps, they've all had a challenge with, helping transition service members. But I think allowing the lean on the nonprofits, I think, is the way to go. The ones that are just solely focused on this.
And there are a lot of them out there.
Right.
If you want to find them,
that's the other thing.
You can find them if you want to go look for them.
That's so smart, Paul. Like what you just said is so important, that if we can bash on the military all you want, like, okay, get the freak over it, man. And we just talked about it for the last couple of hours of how great it's been for me, and I'm forever grateful. Like, get over it. If you want to find a resource, there are so many resources out there. There's so many resources out there. In fact, I'd like to give a shout out to one that a friend of mine just started. It's a tech one. It's called Spearhead Veteran Services. Josh and his wife are friends of mine, and they are working on an AI that will comb veterans as they're getting ready to transition out, or they already have transitioned out. It will comb all of their data around their VA claim and help them to provide and submit a fully detailed VA claim. And so there's little companies like this that are starting up or popping up around the ecosystem that are really doing some really cool stuff. They're using AI in their platform to help guys and gals get all the information they need to submit a proper claim. And I think that'll actually, their process is actually going to help the VA streamline it too. So it's pretty cool. My point is, there's so many. Do you have like a resource list or something around yours?
I don't yet. I've started a newsletter, and one of the things that I do is with each newsletter, I usually give a couple of resources.
That's awesome.
But a grand compiled list, no, it's something I probably should put together.
Yeah, well, I mean, good. I just was curious. But to your point, there's so many. Just do a little bit of research, and then, whether it's law enforcement or veteran or whatever, becoming a part of your next new community, whether it's your church or a group like One More Wave or whatever it might be, I believe is truly critical, because you're no longer you're a part of that community that you just left. Obviously, I'm going to go see all my buddies tonight. They're stuck with me for life, right? But in another 10 years, I'm not going to really know many people in the SEAL community. I'm not going to really know a lot of people anymore. And, all my friends will be retired as well at that point too. So, you got to find your next tranche, your next community. It's really important, really important.
Well, and the other thing too is not making these careers your whole identity.
Yeah, that's
through your entire 20 or 30 years, 4 years, whatever it is. Maintain that connection to just the civilian you. I think so many of us get so wrapped up in these careers that when we step away, it's like, well, now what do I have?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a job. It's not your identity. It really isn't. I wish I would have. It took me a while to get there personally, so I'm not bashing anybody. It was really hard for me to kind of get over that eventually. Now, if someone was to walk up to me and say, "Hey, the United States Navy is going to take away your status as a Navy SEAL," I would live. I would be just fine, But if you'd asked me that years ago, I would have been like, "Oh, I'm going to fight this till the day I die. It's everything. It's everything." It's just not.
Real quick on that, did you ever have a point when you were out that you went, "Oh, I made the wrong decision. I should have stayed in"?
No. I'm telling you, that March morning, when I woke up, looked at my wife, and I was like, "I'm good." I wasn't lying to myself. I was truly being honest. Like, I am fully content. Like, I'm content. I'm good. I'm okay. I do miss certain aspects for sure. One thing that I really miss that you can feel every now and then, but it's not the same, is the locker room. Like not the locker, you know what I mean? The hooch, the platoon space, the troop space, like just being in that during like mission planning or after an op, and just with the camaraderie of the fellas or the dudes, or being in a helicopter or in a vehicle or a tank, whatever, with the dudes, but pre-mission or during the mission, like that's a feeling I will never get to experience ever again. Not real, not a real feeling. So I miss that for sure. But I also can just go back to, a memory or two, and I'm good,
There is something though, and I just finished saying that don't make these careers your entire life.
Right.
But there is something to being in situations where you legitimately could lose your life, or the guy next to you could lose their life. That's just different. That civilians will never understand. I don't care how well of a team gels and coexists, and they're never going to know that. They're never going to know that, you know what? You and I could have been arguing 5 minutes ago, but when the green light goes on and it's time to go,
let's go.
Yeah. And that's what made these careers great, is we would shit talk each other, but then when the light turned green and it was time to go, it doesn't matter. I'm hitting your shoulder and I'm moving forward with you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Well said. That's a mic drop right there.
Well, it's not a mic drop because I want to talk about your book. When does the idea to write a book come to mind? And where I'm going with this is because it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke today.
I get
that
it.
If you're a SEAL, you write a book.
I get it. I'm not guilty as charged. I get it. So when I stepped into that role where I was trying to figure out how do I reshape this culture to then go reshape a foreign culture. I didn't have a lot of books available to me on that subject. Yeah, there's some books on change management, but like organizational culture, like what is that? So I became very intrigued with the subject, and I tried to grab whatever I could and read a book wherever I could. Like Dan Coyle has the Culture Code, and okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And nothing against him, his book's great. But at the time, like back to incremental small wins, for me, there was nothing that I could really just sink my teeth into and go, oh, that's what I want. And so then it got compounded. It got compounded in 2018. So I go through, finally, I'm making a transition. I'm gonna go out of the Navy, and I go through the Honor Foundation. And in the Honor Foundation, they have these things called treks. And have you heard of these treks? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you know. So, but for those who don't, what a trek is the group, 25 to 40 of us will all fly into a city across America, New York, Nashville, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles. We go to Denver, big cities. Something that's not the home base, right? A different city, so you can feel it. Well, I've been to a couple of them because I love them. I love these things. It's a very unique experience that they coordinate, where I'll use the one in San Francisco, which is the very first one I did. We flew into San Francisco, and over 3 days, we got the opportunity to go to Facebook, Dropbox, Airbnb, Oracle, Google, and a slew of others, right? And very quickly, again, I've been a student of this at this point for 6 to 7 years, really intrigued around organizational culture and change management. It's fascinating to me how you can like slice it with a knife, how you can feel it when you walk into a platoon space or a troop space or a department. You can just feel something sucking out the life of that place or breathing into it, right? So we went, and we were up there in Silicon Valley, and I'm telling you, I walked into Facebook and I'm like, holy moly, I feel old. Like I feel really, really old. This is different. Then I walked into Oracle, and it felt very staunch. It felt very different. It felt militant, but kind of like legacy tech. Then we walked into Google, and it was hipster. It was cool, But I was like, I don't think this is the place for me. And I could start, and then we go to Dropbox, and you're feeling the vibe and the energy. And on the top level, they've got a space where it's like a studio for musicians and all this cool stuff. And my point of why I share that is you could feel all the different unique vibes. And I started noticing, not only am I being pushed away or magnetized towards an environment, all the other guys and gals that are on the trip with me, I'm watching as, 5 or 6 are starting to get sucked into that environment. 5 or 6 are getting sucked into that environment. And they're like, dude, I want to go work there. And then these guys are like, I want to go work there. And then these 7 or 8 are like, I want to go work there. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. So then I started nerding out and started doing research around this. And then to bring that kind of close loop, then we went into a small little 1,200 square foot brick wall startup. And I was like, ooh, I like this, right? And they were looking for, at the time, a COO. And I was like, ooh, that's me. I'd be great at this. So I actually applied and went through a process with them. I didn't get the job. But I was actually really interested in what they were doing. I was really excited what they were doing. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. I could feel the difference and the magnetism that was pulling back to those 5 or 6, 7, 8 groups, right? I could feel what was pulling them in. And I went, how do we dissect this? How do we discover what this is? Or how do we empower this? So I did. So I started researching what it was, and I was like, oh, this is what I've been doing over the last couple of years. I just didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't doing it smoothly. I wasn't doing it cleanly. I wasn't probably doing it smartly. I made many mistakes over the way, but I would love to kind of put something down on paper around this. Well, then my buddy Chris, I was telling about this. We're sitting at coffee one day in San Diego.
You've got a lot of coffee options out there. You've got a lot of veteran and first responder-owned coffee companies as well. Trident Coffee is one of these companies, but they're different. Trident fuels your body and mind with a premium cold brew that's infused with powerful ingredients for performance, focus, and wellness. Made with organic MCT oil, lion's mane, and reishi mushrooms, this isn't just coffee. It's fuel for your brain, ensuring smooth, steady energy with no jitters and no crashes. Plus, the cocoa powder adds antioxidants, and the electrolytes keep you hydrated and balanced. Yes, they are cold brew experts, and their beans are brewed for cold brew optimization. But what does that mean for those of you who also love hot coffee like me? Their coffee tastes amazing, not bitter. So enjoy it hot or iced, mixed into your protein shake, or take it on the go. However you drink it, Trident Coffee is coffee upgraded. Get yours now at tridentcoffee.com and use the promo code TDP15 for 15% off your order. That's TDP15 for 15% off your order. Stay sharp, stay fueled, stay ready.
Chris is a marketing guy, my co-author on the book. He was infamously the head of all of marketing for a small little known company called Dave Ramsey.
Small company.
Small. They're when they were small. Now, if you go down to Franklin or Nashville, Tennessee, I mean, it's a campus. I was down there last year, and I mean, it's a campus. It looks like a college campus. I think they have around 800 employees. It's in a behemoth of an organization now. With distance learning, on-site learning, curriculum, conferences, not just his talk show, not just his pod, like it's a behemoth. Anyway, Chris is passionate about culture as well. So we were talking about this, and he was like, hey man, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And he goes, we should really talk about this. And I was like, well, what do you think that would look like? And so we started discussing it, and I got really interested in it. I just it became a hobby. And I was like, this is fun. And I had a lot of fun researching and putting to paper what I think it's a really good book around organizational culture. That's what the book really is. It's in 3 sections of how you define what type of culture you want to have. That's part 1. Part 2 is then building that culture. And then part 3 is scaling and sustaining it. And so it all was stemmed out of going to feel all like the Silicon Valley or the Manhattan different kind of vibes and cultures, and what was magnetizing to certain people and not for others. So what I explained in the book is like, hey, it's irrelevant what type of organizational culture you guys are trying to improve upon and build and create. That's irrelevant. What you need to do is just improve it, make it better, and then you're going to magnetize the people that are drawn to that type of environment. You're not going to pull in everybody, but you're going to pull in the ones that are drawn to that environment, and then you get their best. When they're in that environment, they're going to give you their best, just like what happens in the SEAL teams.
From the marketing aspect, the book is Leadership Is Overrated.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it because first, yes, there are some of your stories, but they're mixed in with Chris's stories, who's not military.
No.
So it's not just one operation,
Yeah.
The other thing that I was quite shocked by, I wasn't expecting to read a story about Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
And recording music, and
I love that story.
But you bring in a lot of different aspects. But the thing that jumped out at me the most, like you said, is establishing culture.
Yep.
And the importance of giving people, like you talk about, leadership is overrated, taking the leader almost out of the equation to where they tend to mess up the problem. Give your people the tools they need to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, and let them go and give them the free rein to succeed.
Yeah. It's so true. When we replace ourselves or enable, empower, I mean, name one good thing anywhere on the planet name one good thing that a single person did by himself.
Nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing. I don't care. There's nothing. There's nothing. Nothing really, really great sees the light of day by just one person working by himself. And so when we empower and reach into those strengths, we attract people with that magnet of a culture that they're going to then give their best. Like, dude, everybody wins. Everyone wins.
Did you enjoy the process of writing a book?
I really did. I did not realize how much of a beast it is. For how, let me be clear, for how I took it on, for how I did it, right? Like I wasn't, and I'm not like Jack Carr, dude. He can just sit there and crank out novel after novel. Like he's incredible. I'm not that. I needed methodical process. I needed, check-ins, milestones. I needed to kind of put my brain in that framework and kind of build it out almost like a business. So I'm not a novelist. And so I didn't realize how challenging that was going to be to match engagement, or storytelling with like principles, with research, and bringing it all together so that it actually tells a narrative. I did have fun with that. I didn't realize how challenging and how hard it was going to be. It took us almost 5 years, 4.5 years. From start, like, hey, let's do this, to release date. It was no joke. I didn't realize it was going to be that much of a beast.
Now, partnering with Chris, did that bring the publisher easier to you, or did you have to go find the publisher? We
as a team, we did. But he had launched books with Dave, so he had been through the process. But in publishing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, like your experience as an executive around the publishing world. What they all care about is, do you have something to say, right? And then, especially nowadays, what they really, really care about is how many followers you have. And we didn't have a big, followership or community. So to go out and pitch it, ironically, I was used to it because I was pitching for my venture firm at the time. But to go out and pitch it was not easy. Now, so we had to, back to what I was saying, I built an entire team. The number 7 on the list, agent, right? I had to hire an agent that was going to put me in front of the right people. And so we did the whole thing literally like a business.
What's on the future horizon for you?
For a book?
Just in general.
Oh, well, right now I'm all in on my current company. And so we're in stealth mode right now. Over this summer, we'll be building our prototype R&D facility, as well as eventually probably next year, we'll be building our big manufacturing plant of our technology. Again, I'll get into that next time I'm on. But so really right now we're doing a lot of early scale, right? Capital formulation, bringing the capital in, which is honestly my least favorite part of the process. Some people are really killer at it. So again, back to knowing thyself. I know I'm not extremely great. I know I've failed multiple times with raising capital. And so I've got a teammate in Evan Loomis who's on my side, who's going to be a killer as it pertains to, raising capital. So, it's because we're going to need a lot of capital for what we're trying to do. We're working on a new type of energy storage that I'm happy to come back on and talk about. But right now we're in stealth mode. We'll be in stealth mode probably for the next couple of years, honestly, as we grow this thing out. Start trying to work with, DOD, Department of Energy, and then, industrial heavy equipment. I'm really excited about actually trying to target and work with industrial agriculture. This is a newer passion of mine over the last couple of years. A lot of people, I'm going to go off on a tangent, so pause me Please. If you want to, but like I'm really, really interested in the soil health of our planet and what can actually transpire when we actually put some attention to it. Most people don't realize. They think, oh, oil and gas, pollution. It's actually not that. It's actually our farmers tilling their soil over and over and over again, as opposed to doing, regenerative crops. And so if we can work with industrial agriculture to actually build systems that are not so energy intense, that they have to till like as fast as possible, they could slow down the process because, a new system is not as energy intensive. I think we could do some real good. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to take years. And in fact, this is the first podcast I've ever talked about it. This is the first public venue I've ever talked about that aspect of how excited I am around it. So exclusive here first, but I'm thrilled to come back on and talk with you through it in the years to come.
I love the fact that you have an interest in areas that are so far removed from what you did, as a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I know. It's all
and I think that for me, when I can present the story of somebody, I always go back to, I had, for those who are old enough to remember and lived here in Southern California, I don't know how much nationwide news it got. I'm sure it did. But there was the North Hollywood Bank shootout, the Bank of America North Hollywood shootout in 97.
Wow.
At the very end, there were 3 LAPD SWAT coppers that got into a car-to-car gunfight with one of the suspects. I got to have one of those guys on the podcast. Why I wanted to talk to him, though, was not his SWAT time, not the North Hollywood Bank shootout, the fact that he became a chef and worked with Wolfgang Puck.
Oh, wow.
So
I love it.
I love hearing stories of, men and women who pivot and just go in a completely unexpected direction.
Me too. You know why I love it the most, actually, is because when you are, and I'm, to be clear, I'm not bagging on anybody who doesn't do that. I get it. But when you are at, like for example, that guy, that's, you're the pinnacle. And now you're on probably the LA Times, probably the cover of LA Times. I'm imagining.
Oh, it was on the live news.
I would imagine. Right. And so now all of that, it's like, I've achieved that. All right. What's next? Like, what are all of the other talents that I have inside of me that I can, or the passions that I have inside of me? Cause I was already there. One thing, I'll probably get some heat for this one, but this is just me. I love you. I'm going to try my best, guys and gals, to say this encouragingly. But one of my frustrations always is when you have a guy or gal that leave our backgrounds and then they go contract. I'm like, hey man, like you were just here. And now what happened? You were here and now you just went here. Like, again, I'm forever grateful for the contractors out there. They do a lot of good. No doubt. But you were here and then you just settled. When I see this, and I'm not talking about the guys that go here and then they go here and they're happy and they're ecstatic and they love what they do. I'm talking about the guys that go here and then they go here and then they just complain and gripe and they just settle. Like, that's probably the most frustrating transition I see out of our community. That really saddens my heart. It really does. Because they're unhappy. They're not happy. They're just sad.
Well, and this goes back to my opening question to you of where'd you learn or where'd you gain this entrepreneurial spirit? Mm-hmm. Because that's something that inherently to these careers, you're not given, for the most part, that free rein to think outside the box. And what would, they're very structured.
Right.
And for a lot of men and women, they get into that, I'll call it the rut. Yeah. And they just do their 20 or 30 and then they pop up at the end and this is all they know. And they never during that ride ever took the opportunity to look right or left and go, what else would I enjoy doing? Yeah. And it's not encouraged.
Yeah.
For the most part, hey, like you made a great comment earlier.
It's true.
First responder, military world, they have a sole function. we need to produce warfighters.
Right.
That's our mission.
Yes.
Outside of that, hey, it's on you. This is our function.
Right.
So they have their limits.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm grateful for this platform, this community, because I'll tell you, if you have, I think how we as a community can really get better about it is like pointing our brothers and sisters to the resources, right? Like you should, if you're transitioning, like you should be listening to stuff like this, right? And it shouldn't be quiet, right? Like you shouldn't rice bowl. Like, oh, I've got this pod and I'm listening to it and no one else can have this pod and this is just my pod. And like, no. And this is not, I'm not blowing smoke. Like, I'm not trying to be a commercial here. You should share this. If you see a guy or gal that's like starting to think about it, you should be like, hey dude, go check out this pod. They have a bunch of resources. Listen to all these other stories. I wish I would have started sooner on my transition listening to stories. Because that, hey, this is the one thing that a lot of these groups do bad, right? We look at high executives, successful executives, these companies, blah, blah, blah. Like, no. Go ask AJ about his transition. Go ask Rob Sweetman about his transition, right? Like go ask those guys or guys and gals like them who have done it and listen to their experience, because you're about to experience it like that. That executive over at the Fortune 500 company has never done it. Listen to the people who have, right? And so I wish I would have done that sooner. It's a great point you make. I wish I would have done that sooner.
Because you have these stories to tell you, do you think there's more books in you?
I want to do one more, but it's going to be a little more a little more refined, in the sense I'm going to go a little more nitty gritty. Like I'm going to go into detail. Like I want to go into like compensation philosophies, like how we can create better environments where people get paid more and, the business isn't taking all the profits. Like our people are getting paid better. Like, and that's going to fuel the culture and the organization and improve it. Like I want to go a little more into detail on that, but it's it's on the 10-year horizon. Not anytime soon, unless anyone here wants to co-author with me. I love the co-author move. I need a specific co-author though, but yeah, I don't have any time to put into it right now, unfortunately, but it's all good.
I would like to ask, you survive stepping on an IED that brings you, I'll say, back to your faith, but not practicing. What was the event or the catalyst that actually got you back into practicing your faith?
Thanks for asking, man. Thank you. So I grew up in a Christian household, went to church every Sunday, twice, once on Wednesday night, youth group Friday night, like very involved. I went to the private Christian school. It was in the basement of the church. When I joined the military, I essentially kind of turned my back on God. Like I was like, all right, you're up there, I'm down here. Like I'm doing my thing. Like I know you're there. Okay. Like I got my stuff going on. But I would still fake it. I would still go, got married, in a Christian marriage, would still go to church on Sunday mornings. I was faking it so much, in fact, that I actually was bringing a Navy SEAL and his wife to church with us on Easter Sunday morning in 2016 or 15, excuse me. And I'm bringing them to church at my church, fully faking my relationship with Jesus. And Pastor Miles of the Rock Church here in San Diego said something from the pulpit that just hit me like a ton of bricks, that it was just never too late. It's just never too late to just admit that, hey, I need you. And he did an altar call, and I just stood up right then and there. To their surprise, they're like looking at me like, hey, you brought us here. Why are you getting saved again, you faker? I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about it at lunch. I'll take you guys to lunch. We'll talk about it. So, but I rededicated my life right then and there on the spot. And I'm forever glad I did. And since then, he's been using me. God's been using me time and time again to minister to veterans, to family, to, coworkers, friends. He's just been using me, and I'm forever grateful that he does. In fact, now, fast forward, so this is a newer development. I have actually been working with my church. This is really interesting. My church is experiencing explosive growth in Austin, Texas. And dude, I just recently sat down with my pastor, Chris. He's one of my best friends. And I was like, hey, man, I've been praying about something. This is kind of going to sound a little awkward, a little weird. So just hear me out. But I think I'm praying on something. And I think God wants me to do this. And so he and I sit down and he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, he's like, I've been praying too. And I'm like, well, what's up? And he goes, well, our church is growing. I mean, our church ain't small. Our church is 4,000 people. It's pretty big. We're growing tremendously. And so he and I are talking, and he goes, hey, I've been praying about something too. We're getting to this phase where we really need to start bringing in the right. And I go, okay, let me talk. And he goes, okay, go ahead. And so I'm like, hey man, I think God really wants me to volunteer at the church, kind of like as a COO, to help, bring it into the 21st century, improve the tech stack, improve the logistics, just, sit here as kind of like a consultant and help improve this, because, the church community is, for the most part, they're 20, 30 years behind industry and how they do business and blah, blah, blah. And so, and he's like, dude, that's exactly what I've been praying about. So funny enough, so now fast forward, here I am, and I'm working with the church right now to try and improve and optimize how we do business in a good way, in a holistic way. So it's come full circle since I rededicated my life. Now I'm back in ministry, volunteering, because I haven't been working in the nonprofit space since I left One More Wave in 2021. Okay. I left One More Wave 2021. I was really busy. They were going in a certain direction that Alex wanted to take the organization, and I was getting pulled in the direction with Core Scientific, and we were, all right, let's go bring someone else onto the board and someone that's all in and has more time. And so I haven't been in the nonprofit space for 4 years now. So now I'm back in it. And it's with my church, ironically.
Somebody who loves surfing, how do you like living in Austin?
Oh, I miss surfing so bad. But we have a fake wave up in Waco, Texas that I get to every now and then, whenever I can. Yeah. But I miss it. And so I'll try and hit the waves tomorrow morning, maybe Saturday morning. Maybe.
Any last pieces of advice you want to throw out there
I'm so grateful that for everyone that's still here listening, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your service to our country, to our states, to our counties, to our cities, our provinces, towns. We forever grateful. And I would just say in closing, really, like, don't ever downplay your service, period. Don't ever downplay it, because you've done more than most people have, 99% of this country. So don't ever downplay it. I'll get this a lot because I'm a SEAL, right? Like someone will come up and be like, oh, I haven't done what you've done. And I'm like, yeah, but you've served the nation, and I'm forever grateful. So don't downplay that. And don't be, I want to use my words carefully here. Don't get caught up in the fact that you're using your service for your benefit as it pertains to, your next career. You're not using anything. The military or, your department or whatever used you to take care of Americans, right? Now, America needs to help out and take care of you and give you an opportunity. So don't ever feel like you're using your service to get ahead. Like no, the military used you. Now it's your turn to grow from all of that experience and bring that experience to private sector or even, public sector, whatever it might be. So don't downplay it. Like the world needs you guys out there, really does. So let's all benefit from that world-class experience you got.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your stories.
Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome. Keep it going. Keep it going.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.